that should be a red flag for you. Like the moment you see like a medical doctor that specializes in psychiatry, and now all of a sudden they have a really big YouTube following talking about diet, it's like, that should be a red flag. I'm not saying it is a red. I'm not saying like it automatically means that they're untrustworthy, right?
It's a good heuristic.
But
It's a pretty good heuristic.
it's a heuristic that I tend to that, like 9 times out of 10 is correct. Where it's like money pulled them away from the area that they're not an expert in, and now they're using their credentials in an area that they know a bit about, but like a medical doctor outside of their field of like study doesn't know that much more than like a nurse that's really passionate and studied it. Right? Like at a certain point, you just kind of get to a point where you get really good at reading research and you know the medical terms. Once you hit that level, you kind of everybody's on the same playing field except for people that are experts in that field that have conducted research in that field.
Does anyone think? Hold on. Your mic sounds a little harsh to me, like a little harsh, Scott. But I'm not sure. That might just be me. Word. It's like it's not quite peaking or anything like that. It's just like like it sounds like it's gaining. It's gaining. A little gaining to me, but not like a whole bunch. So I don't know. Consider that.
Got some extra pop to it.
How about this? Is this good now?
Actually, does sound better. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. There you go.
Yeah. So I was in a debate now on Wick's panel. Did you see it, Lactoid?
I saw a little bit of it.
No, I didn't. What was it all about?
Corey. Oh, it was the TikTok sale, the bill. And at the end, I was implied, guys, that maybe I'm Jay Keeling. Just implying, though, right? Like, have you considered Jay Queuing?
you were Jay Queuing?
Yeah. So like, I bring up that like there's been a lot of politicians who talked about how TikTok is pushing.
I know what you brought up. Yeah. How TikTok, like how like the number one trending thing on TikTok is like Free Palestine, followed by like another, like the overwhelming majority of political content is that way. And all of a sudden the SPLC, the ADL, APAC, and everybody was like, this needs to be fucking fixed. And when you look at the 15 Republicans and like, what is it, like 29, I can't remember off the top of my head, Democrats that didn't vote for it, they're all people that like are like that APAC didn't give money to. It's like, oh, interesting.
And then but someone was like, well, like, is there maybe a conspiracy? What letter does it start with? Is what they were saying. That was fun. But like, you know, it's not going to intimidate me. Like, it's not going to slow me down.
Who was it implied by, or was it like
Brianna Wu?
Oh, okay, interesting.
I never met that person before.
They do that shit to me all the time, and they're like, I love when people like bring it up because like it's a common thing that people use against whom they perceive to be right wingers, right? They'll be like, you saying the Jews, blah blah blah, and I'm like, dude, I'm in ANCAP, like David Friedman. Thomas Friedman, Murray Rothbard, like von Mises. These are all Jews and or Jews who escaped the Holocaust. My entire fucking movement is Jews. Like, what are you talking about? Like, all of the people I idolize are Jewish. Like, I'm not saying anything bad about the Jews running things. Like, what the fuck do you mean?
But yeah, I think like. Eventually, if you spend long enough in a Twitch debate, like at some point, or political debates, at some point, someone's going to accuse you of Jay Queuing. Like, it's just going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's probably now because for the longest time, it was probably only the dissident right that ever was like that, and now, and yes, that has always been a problem on the extreme left, but it's been a very, very quiet, very small voice problem, right? Like you have a few kind of like hardcore tankies that were like JQers and things like that, but for the most part, it was pretty non-existent. The
JQ?
Jewish question.
Yeah.
Wait, what is it?
The Jewish question. Like,
Oh,
Are you
oh,
are you
oh,
playing
trying
a
to say
game?
without saying. Right?
Yeah.
Like, are you playing like
gotcha,
how
yeah.
quickly can we get in trouble?
No, I honestly, I never heard.
Flesh it out for me
Yeah,
first.
yeah.
I've never heard of the
Jew.
Jews. What's that? Is that like a soft
Well,
drink
no,
of
I
some
knew
kind?
that. No, I knew that, but I
I
didn't
think-
know.
I
I didn't know that
think
JQ. I didn't know what that term. But I got
No,
it.
it's fine.
I think the popularity of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has awoken much of that on the left, right? I think there are a lot more people on the left that you never would have heard them say anything anti-Semitic. But like with anything, when passions get high, when political tension gets high, there's a subset of a cohort of people that lack the knowledge to be able to know where to place their anger.
Mm.
And so they pick up pieces of what they're hearing from their own political in group, and then they just kind of start throwing spaghetti to see what sticks, right? And I think you're starting to see that for the first time on the left, because it used to only be like hardcore indoctrinated tankies that were like JQers on the left. And now there's plenty of left-wing people that really don't know any idea what they're talking about, but they heard that AIPAC primaries progressive Democrats, and they heard somebody bitch about it, and they heard, saw 20 TikToks about how evil Israel is right now against Palestine, and that was all they needed to be like, the Jews run the fucking banks, and you're like,
Yeah,
yo,
exactly.
relax.
No, you're absolutely correct. And I think you're spot on to say it's a problem on both sides. And I love how you illustrated how like this happens, right? Like how people take pieces. This is you'll see this in discourse, like with the trans debate, right? How people take pieces like of things from academia and just like form something like some sort of a homunculus of an ideology and kind of just throw that out there. So like I'm definitely with you. I think. And it's something I actually really want to talk about, right? Is like how
you ever read Carl Jung?
Carl Jung? Oh no, I haven't read Carl Jung. Yeah, but go ahead.
Okay, so he has
I'm sorry.
Right, but no. He just has a famous quote. Jordan Peterson used to say it all the time, right? He's probably repopularized it, but Peterson aside, it's a great Jung quote, right? Which is, when he spoke about the concept of ideological subversion, which is, he has this quote that says, "People don't have ideas; ideas have people," and that's really what he's talking about. Is that there's an ideology, but the ideology is very rarely encased in one individual, because one individual that understands an ideology fully is usually like a highbrow academic, but other people out in the world understand bits and pieces of the ideology, and they create, like you said, like a homunculus of the ideology. And so it's when you see the ideology come to fruition in crowds or events that like it kind of takes over, whereas like not everybody really knew the idea. You saw this at Charlottesville with some of the white supremacy, but you also saw this with like BLM protests, right? Where like there's a lot of people that are there and they all have differing opinions and different ideas and different parts of the ideology that they keep and then parts that they don't keep. But then when you get them in a giant crowd, the ideology plays out.
Look at you can look at old interviews of when Occupy was happening, right? Like the media being like super against like the whole movement, right? They would just like interview random people within like who are at the encampments and
whatever crazy person they could find,
whatever the craziest looking person they could find is exactly who they went to. And some of them like literally had like barely an idea that like protest was happening. They were just like, oh man, there are people hanging out here and I'm hanging out here, and then here's footage of me doing like being a troublemaker and whatever, right? But even those who did have an idea, like it was just like bits and pieces of what was happening that they were trying to engage with. And Occupy was like the worst example of that because it specifically didn't have a leader, like it was like more decentralized.
The problem with Occupy, the biggest problem with Occupy is that with the We Are the 99% is that it was populism, but there was two completely contradictory ideologies that were primarily involved in Occupy. There was my people, the libertarians, right? And then there was the commies. Like that's what Occupy was. Obviously there was a bunch of other populist people that were involved, but like the two main activist groups were the hardcore libertarians that were like, fuck the Federal Reserve, fuck the
Mhm.
banks, fuck the government and the way that they got involved in all of this shit.
Mhm.
And then there were commies that were like, eat the rich. And like
Yeah.
this somehow came together for a little while. And it was like, it was doomed to failure. You all right over there, Lactoid?
Lactoid. Yeah,
I'm
you okay,
kicking. I'm
Lactoid?
kicking ass, bro. I'm all good. What's up?
name.
It looked like the edible just kicked in. Like you were like,
yeah, right.
No.
Lactoid, I would have been friends at Occupy, I'm sure, right? We had a lot of friends on this side, like lifelong, close knit friendships. But like, so the thing I wanted to bring up though, we're waiting on a bunch of people. The three individuals we're doing Doobie, we're waiting on
Foolery.
yeah, Ali,
Ali, yeah.
Yeah, Ali's going to take a little bit because it's still Ramadan, so he's doing his thing. But he'll be here soon. And in any case, the thing I want to bring up, and I don't know how to address this without it going into without one being perceived as anti-Semitic, but I don't think it's going to happen one way or the other, right? But without it actually being anti-Semitic, is talking about like Jewish coordination. Right, like is
so pick a better word first.
I know, but I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know how to talk about this, right? Like exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like,
oh fuck.
You know, so this is where like I'm walking on eggshells, right?
Right at the beginning of stream too, right? So the
I know,
YouTube
right?
can
This is great.
Demonetize it.
Whatever. I get no money from these things anyway. That's fine. I'm good. But when we talk about like black individuals, like black business leaders getting together and like doing a thing, working in concert to accomplish a goal, that's the thing that happens. We do that, right? Black people do this. We work in concert with each other to accomplish goals to maybe better the group, right? That's okay. This happens, well, you can see it in Chinatowns, right? Chinese individuals, work in concert. But there's a group that I can't really talk about doing that, and not that there are some shadowy evil people like trying to take over the world. I don't believe that. Never believed that. Someone's going to clip it otherwise, though. But whatever, sure.
You should have Doobie for this conversation, I think.
Yeah. But like, how do you like discuss this, right? Like, in a way that is like respectful and doesn't invite awful things,
Discuss specifically though.
Well,
like
sure. Like I want to discuss how to discuss it. Right? Like
that's a conversation, yeah.
There we go. The meta world news has entered the chat.
Yeah. I mean, like, what do you all think of that? Like, does it sound crazy? Do you think bringing that up, I was in the wrong?
I think there's a ton of factors here, right? So factor number one is that Jewish people have been historically oppressed basically since they've existed.
Yep.
Right? So they're incredibly sensitive to it. Fact number two, they're one of the few religions that are also an ethnicity, which makes these conversations more difficult because it's easy to say, for example, Islam is a savage religion, and it is a disgusting practice whatsoever. But I can't say, for example, Jewishness is a savageness that is disgusting without saying, by the way, I'm not talking about the Jew. You get what I'm saying? So that complicates it. Right, for sure. Well, I mean, I understand that there's. I said it specifically.
But most people don't.
The foreskin shit's a little bit weird, I think, honestly.
Well, okay, sure, right. So, but I mean, that's. I mean, everybody does shit that's a little weird. So that's one, right? So that's two. The third thing that is an issue is that Jewish culture has a couple of unique characteristics. One that is very matriarchal. And it's kind of feminine, both in its political alignment and the way that it deals with itself as a culture. I mean, talk to any Jewish person, like a mother has much more power in the household than in most other cultures. It's very similar to the black culture in that way. So then there's another thing here. which is that their insistence on education, arithmetic, and especially reading literacy and critical thinking skills, especially, have placed them in combination with Ashkenazi having a higher IQ in more positions of power. And so, what does it mean when a group that is historically oppressed, that has a culture against oppression, that leans more politically left wing, and is highly educated and intelligent? What are those things all come together towards is that you have a minority group that is often obsessed with oppression, but is also then the victim of oppression, but that has power that many other minority groups don't have. And so it becomes a unique characteristic, or a unique thing. Um, in tandem with, I think everyone should read George Samel's piece, The Stranger, which is a chapter from a larger book. I can't remember the name of the book currently, that talks about the Jew as a stranger in culture, how they're kind of always set aside from culture. They're often the scapegoat of problems, right? There's kind of a unique thing about Jews because of their position where the moment that a problem arises or things start to go poorly, people start to point the finger at them intrinsically. So there's a lot of special, unique things about Jews that that make the conversation just different. I don't know that it's necessarily more difficult. I mean, sure, on social media it is because they, you know, because of the tendency to be offended and the power thing kind of means you end up getting banned when you speak, right? But
Yeah.
I do think that it is more different than it is dangerous. I think it really just happens to come along that unique combination of having a voice and having power, whilst also recognizing that they're kind of the first people that society blames when shit goes downhill. And so they're very careful about anti-Semitism because their parents and their grandparents and their great-grandparents have lived through generation after generation after generation of being in a culture, rising to the top. And then the moment shit starts going downhill, everyone coming out to them with pitchforks, you know?
Yeah. So like I mean I think you're making a lot of great points. Like I'm thinking like if I were to have this conversation at some point, I would need a lot of Jewish individuals there, right? To more importantly than any other conversations I usually have, it would definitely need a lot of Jewish individuals there to give their perspective on this, because like God. Uh, Sometimes these things come up and we don't have like appropriate language. I think people will inevitably go into extremely anti-Semitic talking points because they haven't been given like verbiage that works, you know, here that we can all agree on.
It's because it's been so taboo to even discuss.
Yeah.
That when something becomes taboo to discuss in the public, right? What happens is twofold. So the first thing that happens is the normies, the majority of the population, don't develop a verbiage. They don't create bridges. There's no center. The center gets pulled out. The Overton window shifts. And then there is a select group of people that are left behind in this, the racists, right? And what ends up happening is instead of there being a bridge between the extreme and like in the public forum and bringing people from that, what they do is they isolate. And then they move themselves into other spaces and they develop their own language for discussing these things. And they develop their own theories, and these theories go unchallenged and they become deeply ideological. Lactoid, what?
My chat wants to know. So, who here is circumcised? I'm not, so I won't raise my hand.
I am not.
I am, unfortunately.
But,
uncircumcised. I am uncircumcised.
But I did not circumcise my child. All right, I made sure my child wasn't circumcised.
Good job, bro.
I'm the victim. I was the victim, but I did not do that shit to my kid.
My mother was very progressive, very left.
Yeah, I am circumcised. I'm not sure if you are asking you're uncircumcised or circumcised. I am circumcised though, and it's really fucking unfortunate. I literally remember like learning about this. It was like an ABC News special talking about like the idea, and I'm like, well, my parents wouldn't do that to me, right? And like as a child, like it was like a 11-year-old, I'm like examining my penis. It's like I can roll some skin up over the top, right? That's Like, I'm good, right? No, I'm not good. I was fucking devastated.
And piercing your child's ears is the same type of violation.
Except that shit grows back, right? The little thing it grows or whatever.
Yeah,
you guys aren't never getting the
I would
other
say
shit
from
back.
No, I'm just saying, just
from a
wait
libertarian
until they can
perspective-
consent. Just wait until they can consent to.
Well, they
having their
can't
ears
consent until they're adults, right? Like, so the thing here is
They
like,
can- if they can consent what they want to have for breakfast, they can consent to having their ears
better
pierced.
fucking be
Yeah,
real
that's how
careful
that
with
works.
and children can consent to things, right? You might,
I am.
might want to clean up your language on that because you can get into
Oh,
a
boy.
dangerous.
Do you want Frosted Flakes
Might be
or Honey
Pete
Nut
doing it
Cheerio?
again.
No,
You're-
mommy, I
you're-
want.
Do you want to dream?
The way you're phrasing that, you're not
Trust
making
me.
a great case
Yeah,
here.
you're not
Like,
I'm
There's
saying,
a difference-
can children consent to anything at all? Are we serious? Are we gonna say nothing?
I mean, I think that's an interesting question in and of itself.
talk about difficult
Right, I'm just saying.
conversations to
I'm
have.
just saying.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
just saying. When you say these things, you better be careful about what you say because
I'm
people will
saying
clip
it.
you out of context, and
Yeah.
then it'll just be like it'll haunt you forever. All right,
Oh my
you're in a
God.
Hosh moment right now because
Yeah.
you were
Yeah,
uncareful.
I
with
mean,
your
it's
words.
easy. Children cannot consent to sex. There,
Well, he is
Here we
like
go.
Muslim coded, so
but they can consent to what they want to eat,
Ah!
what clothes they want to
Yeah,
wear, what kind
They
of
can't.
why not?
a lot of people are because I understand what you're saying, right? But the way that consent is utilized in our language is that it tends to mean a binary, right? It's either a full yes or a full no thing, right? So children can express their desires on a whole range of issues. But when you say that children are capable of consenting to something, what you're saying without meaning to say it is that children are capable of consenting to sex, even though you explicitly say that they're not, because it's a binary thing about the capacity for someone to
What
have
about-
the reason to fully understand the consequences of their actions.
Well,
But
hold on.
hold on, wait. Couldn't it be possible or the case that children
I tried to save you. Go. Fly free, Icarus, and see how close you can get to the sun.
Yeah, based on your
I
mental capacity.
admire the guts a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, based on your mental capacity, you're able to understand simpler concepts easier than more complicated concepts. And so it's easier for you to understand, hey, I do consent to having Frosted Flakes,
Well,
but I don't understand
no.
that I consent
This
to having sex.
No, you can express your desires, right? Just like sex, you don't understand the long-term consequences. Our first topic tonight might be a great understanding
Talking about
of why
obesity?
children, why children maybe shouldn't be consenting, right? As you speak about sugary cereal
Well,
because they don't actually understand
okay.
the full consequences of it.
well, so
So how could you ever make
They
a
know
how
that
can
they
you-
want
if-
sugary
if-
cereal because it feels good in their tummy.
Okay.
But they don't
Do
actually
we-
understand.
so
the
does that
danger
mean
involved.
we violate children's autonomy and it's okay?
wait, Dream. Let
That's
me
not
ask
what it
a
means.
question.
No, I'm
Uh,
asking.
It's
Just
a
they can
hormone.
never consent to anything, right? How can we ever know what they want and then like give them something that they want, or do we give them nothing that they want?
Your question is too vague.
Like I'm
Well,
confused since
can
they
I-
can't
I
consent.
shouldn't
What,
have
what,
we-
I may
is, you know
be
what I
able
mean?
to help
Like,
you,
it's
Dream.
vague.
I might
yeah,
be able.
go
to help
ahead,
you, Dream.
Corey. Help me out, brother.
So at least I don't know how it is, obviously in the United States, or I'm sure it varies maybe state by state. But let's say where I am, okay, when it comes to so unfortunately, I have a chronic condition, diagnosed at an early age, and pretty much at the age of 14, I was allowed to make my own medical decisions. Now, can I say at that time that I was like actually truly informed, and like at the end of the day, it was basically my mother took the reins. But like it was technically up to me at that age. Like, so is that an appropriate age for a child to make medical decisions,
Are you asking me?
or anybody if anybody wants to weigh in? Like,
I mean, I'm curious because when I was a kid, I definitely like asked to go to the doctor when I knew something was wrong with me. Now, are you asking me like what kind of medical? Depends on the medical decision, right?
well, pretty much like obviously I didn't test the limits at the time when I was being treated, but like pretty much like
So,
like
let me-
consent
let me
to
pro- let
virtually
me-
everything.
Let me pose something to you. All right. So in high school, Dream kind of brings up a good one here, right? So in high school, I was standing next to a guy in the locker room, and I looked over and I noticed his like face and stomach were turning green. I was
Oh,
like,
not where
like-
I thought this was
I
going. but
do
okay.
not think. Yeah.
and I was like, bro, you don't look so good. And he's like starting to sweat. He's like, I don't think I feel so good. I was like, I think you need to go to the hospital. And like, all right, mind you, I don't have any medical I'm like 15, 16 at the time, and I go, Coach, come here, and Coach comes over, and we're about to go out for a football game, like literally, like we're like 20 minutes from kickoff, and the guy's like turning green. Well, what had happened was his appendix had started to burst, and like
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm not a doctor. Right? This guy's not a doctor. Does he have consent to go? Hey, I need to go to the hospital. Yeah, do I have consent to go to the hospital? Right? Do I like? Well, obviously he doesn't understand. What appendicitis is, right? But he does know something's happening. I'm turning green, and I'm feeling real bad. Like I think that you definitely have some capacity to like consent to having something done to you at certain ages, despite not knowing the full effects, kind of thing. Now, if it relates back to sex, like you're saying, everything does. No, I don't agree with that. I think that when people take that that they're looking at it really not nuanced, because you obviously have like the ability to consent to things. Like here's another kind of risque example. When kids go and do bad things at the school with the pew pews, like they or what are they consider? I guess, are they just expressing their desires violently? No, they're obviously able to consent to
What?
causing problems. So like clearly, there's some kind of consent level there.
No, no. So I think this is what happens. I think we're conflating terms, which is what I was trying to explain to D10 Dream, right? I think people are using consent in two different ways, and this is why I said expressing desires versus the capacity for consent, right? So yes, as children age, parents, guardians, authority figures that are placed in care of a child, right? They allow the children to exercise a greater degree of bodily autonomy as they age, because we recognize that they know more about the world, that there are things that like don't require a lot of thought, and that they're not necessarily grave in their circumstances, such as do you want the chicken sandwich or the chicken fried steak for lunch right? Like we let the kid choose which of these two things at the cafeteria we want, right? Because it's not real that big of a deal, right?
Right.
And because we're preparing them as they get older, right? We have to prepare them to make their own decisions, which means we have to give them more freedom and more autonomy as they grow up. But when we're talking about consent, we're talking about the capacity for someone to be a well-reasoned adult with a brain that is fully capable of making rational decisions on their own without a parent or guardian. And that's why I think it's difficult to not use consent in places where we're talking about like menial small things, like a child consents to having corn versus peas and carrots with lunch, right? Like that's just a choice they're making. I don't necessarily know that is like they're giving or expressing their consent fully in that regard. And like I said, and that's why when we look at, let's say, the sugary cereal, you can see how a child might lack the ability to consent. Even though they want
Sure.
the sugary cereal, the parent might know that it's bad for them and that they're not going to necessarily give them a bunch of candy for dinner.
We could use a more concrete example, such as a hug from maybe a friend or or a family member. Like that's less serious than a sexual assault, and less like far in advance as eating a certain sugary cereal that may lead to obesity. Giving a hug in a short term is just what it is. And so in that
I think
scenario,
that's actually interesting, because I think in the future that is going to be something we're weird about. I think looking at like clips of Joe Biden, right, sniffing kids and shit,
yeah,
like in like 40, 50 years, we're probably going to look at like parents and like aunts and uncles kissing and hugging children as like weird and rapey.
Well,
Like,
the stomach
we don't look
tickling
at it
is
that
already
way
rape,
quite
right?
yet.
systemic tickling.
Well,
Wait, am I wrong?
not getting
Like,
into
like there
that.
was a
Right,
stomach
but I just
touching, and
think-
that's like rape now, according
do
to
think-
the internet.
I
What
do
is-
think like
what
in
is
a couple of
systemic touching?
generations, we're gonna like go to our grandkids and be like, "Come here," and like give them a kiss on the neck, and the parents are gonna be like, "Yo, what the fuck are you doing to my child?" I'd be like, "Yo, what? I was just giving them a little
mean,
tickle," and they're like,
I already
"No,
feel. I already
dare
feel
you
what you're
touch them?"
saying. I already feel what you're saying. And like in a workplace, like we have this culture of, "Hey, how you doing?" Everybody hugs each other, but there's no necessarily like, of like explicit consent of that this is okay to do so. But you just like, let me just roll with the punches, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a system of ethics, right? The system of ethics is always negotiated with all of the members of society. And so like what is and isn't perceived to be egregious or received to be some form of aggression or, some form of um imposing yourself against someone changes as the culture changes, right? And so what may have been socially acceptable in terms of personal space or comments and things like that, 50 years ago will change as time progresses. That's kind of part of the intersubjectivity of ethical norms.
So,
But
so,
setting
so
that aside,
yeah, given the case that
I
that's
get what you're saying with the hug, right? Like the
right.
hug is less egregious because there's not really we recognize that there's not going to be like long perceived childhood trauma from a hug, right?
Yes.
Like so we kind of let that slide and we let the kid determine whether or not they want to do that. We give them some level of bodily autonomy there. But I
Right.
think we might actually change our opinion on that.
tickling.
But so as of right now, according to our current standards, we do allow children to consent to at the very least a hug.
Again, I don't think that word applies there. I
But
think
you
the
just
word is being
kind of like
misappropriately used.
implied that that's what's going on. You just implied.
Yeah, earlier you
No,
were
I
talking
think
about like your ability to consent, not consent in and of itself. So like consent is
Yeah.
your ability to like make a decision, sign a contract, like engage in something with another person. Like this is consent, but you're making consent about the ability to consent.
Are you talking to me?
No, that's
he's
what
talking to me.
Scott was doing.
I'm not understanding the distinction between the two.
Well, look at my
I-
example with his
I'm saying-
appendicitis. He obviously didn't know what's happening to him, but he's like, "Hey, we got to get some kind of surgery done here," kind of situation. Like
What I'm saying, what I'm saying is,
Did you
you're
touch his stomach,
technically
Gibbs?
right. Tom Foolery,
you right there.
what, and you kind of came in a little bit late, right? Because what I'm saying is like, do you want to drink? You're technically right in that, yes, that we allow the child to consent to certain things. What I'm saying is that I wouldn't use that language because what I was saying earlier is like you have to be careful about the language that you use on the internet because it's colloquial understanding, and to many people, the colloquial understanding of consent is a binary, and that it is an either or, one or the other. Either you're an adult that can consent to everything, or you're not, right? And so like,
Oh,
I just
okay,
wouldn't
that's what
use
you
that
mean.
language because it's going to make you look like a fucking pedo to certain groups of people. They're going to clip you and they're going to clip you out of context. And then every time you go on a fucking panel or do something, you're going to be on Twitter and someone's going to have a fucking thing on you like, oh, the fucking pedo guy. And you're like, I think
just
children
had
can
this problem
consent
with
unclipped
Keffel's
out,
community.
right?
Sure.
Like
I literally
it's a
just
bad
had
idea.
this problem with Keffel's community where we're talking about consent and I'm trying to like get into more nuance about like levels of consent and ability to consent and what consent is, and they're making this list like very hard binary. You do or don't consent. It's very simple. Like it
Oh,
was
the fucking Catboy Ranch people fucking talking about consent. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. I would
Go
imagine a
follow
lot.
some fucking HRT to fucking kids as parents that don't consent, and then fucking come back to me and tell me about consent. Fuck off.
I would imagine that even people may say that they believe in a binary of consent, but they may not actually believe that because I think as a society, we've already
Bro,
majorly.
it's linguistics is what I'm trying to say. It's about the word. It's not about the belief you're talking about specifically.
yeah,
Like
it's a
words,
semantic difference.
right? Like words are just a means of conveying an idea, right? And they can be interpreted one way or the other. I'm just saying, like, you should just use a synonym, man. That's all I'm trying to say.
So speaking of consent, so I've been watching a lot of Andrew Tate lately. What do you guys think about that
Oh,
guy?
God.
Do you guys? Apparently, some people are saying he did something bad,
Great
but then I
guy.
looked into it, and everyone's
Great
like,
guy.
nobody's actually pointing to any specifics or something. It seems like
Top G, brother. No,
I
I'm
think
just
he probably
kidding.
has a bad definition of consent, personally.
He
Yeah.
he absolutely just admitted online to sex trafficking.
Whoa, how?
Yes.
What did he say? What did he do that's sex trafficking? Go ahead.
He says
In his course, you can find the videos. I can find it right this second. But in his course, he has one of the, I guess, episodes, if you will. He specifically talks about a young girl who is either 15 or 16 at the time that he's describing it, which is legal in Romania, where he describes how he made her his bottom bitch and how he utilized her to gain the trust of other women and to engage in threesomes and sex with this teenage girl as a means of making them more comfortable so that they could be more easily like entrapped into the concept of like the love that they have and
It's
be more
just
willing
Ghislaine
to funnel
Maxwell.
all of their money over, right? So like he describes the process. Now, when you want to talk about the strict legality in the country that he's in, what he's doing is technically legal, at least so far as what he's admitted to. I don't know what other evidence
So,
they do or don't have.
I've-
Probably
I've-
not good evidence.
I
But
missed
what
that
he
episode.
said, I think, is
I'll
something
be honest.
anybody would say is just immoral as fuck.
Sure,
So-
I missed that, but like, let's leave that aside. Is there anything else, or is that just
Well,
like the
so
main?
I mean, I want to go even with
That's my
that
big thing.
episode, even with that episode, right? Like, he takes it a little further, but he almost is using it as the same concept of if you go to the bar, make sure you take girls with you, right? So that like you're not the creepy group of dudes at the bar hitting on people kind of thing. It's like
Mhm.
you want to take girls with you, so girls know that these are like fun guys, decent guys, and like that girl's hot, and then the other girl like strike up a friendship, and then like there's your icebreaker kind of thing. But he took that a little bit further, obviously, with the sex and the threesome stuff. I mean, as far as the charges, I mean, they've been trying to get him for all sorts of stuff, and like every time I've seen any of this stuff out, like it seems pretty shoddy. Like they're saying it's a crime that committed in 2014. They're not even listening to the defendants. They're not even listening to what the crime is currently. Like, but they're like, extradited him. Like, I don't think they really have anything
Yeah,
this time.
dude's a piece of shit, but I
Yeah,
don't
he's
know
a
that they have
douchebag,
any
yeah.
real proof.
But he's
I-
funny
I-
though. That's like, it sucks. I wanna like him.
want to
Okay,
like-
that's interesting. Back to it.
I mean,
he
the
also-
kid
but-
shit, that's pretty fucked. But like,
but
if that
the-
didn't happen, I'd be on board. Okay, I just want to
But
point
the
that
thing
out.
Don't
is-
shit
There's
prime,
also a
guys,
bunch of
all right?
evidence
The
that
black
he
community
coerced
still
women
can't get over
into
Michael
staying-
Jackson. All right.
Andrew Tate is black, by the way, which makes this is like me wanting to
Yeah.
like him might be related to that.
I think
Also,
the
Michael
edible
Jackson
lipstick
didn't
was
do
black.
it.
That's why he's
Oh,
so
God.
cool. It's that
Yeah,
glitter.
but sorry. Foolery. You want to say something, Tom?
Yeah, I like it. There's also like women testifying that they coerce them into staying in the building. So like lots of people are like, look at the cameras. Look at
Mm.
you can see the cameras. They're allowed to walk around all they want. They can come and go if they want. But there's like a lot of coercion and threats that keeps them from actually going too far, from leaving
Can't
the
prove
business,
any of that,
from
though.
continuously showing up. Well, their
Well, the-
testimonies are like if you have
Yeah, but like that's like he said, she said, right? That's why the definitive thing for me is
part of
him
a trial.
describing
Well,
his behavior.
I was
right?
gonna say, Fabian,
Yeah,
he
because
does
part
That
of
he
to me
does
is more definitive.
the thing that Tom brings up is that their description of what happened aligns with what he himself says happens and how he manipulates these girls to do X, Y, and Z. Is they take take their passport and say, I'm not gonna talk
That's
to you
sex
anymore.
trafficking 101.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
it happens like the juicy girls in Korea. Happens in
Yeah.
America. Like when someone has control of your passport, someone has control
You're
of like,
immediately
your
being
identification.
trafficked, sexual or
I
not.
wouldn't say you're immediately
being
being
trafficked.
trafficked, but
I'm
like there.
I'm
there's
saying if
certainly
they
some areas,
they
but yeah,
take
pretty
away your
much.
if they take away your passport and they're not giving it back, then like assume you're being trafficked. Like it's really bad when that happens. And he talked about that. He talked about like how to manipulate these women to like be working these crazy long
Basically,
hours.
and
to
shut their
tickle their
family out.
stomachs, right? I mean, maybe he might
And
have been
shut
doing
their
that. We don't
family
know.
out. He says he ignores them for a while, makes them fall in love, and say, "I'm not going to talk to you. If you're going to talk to your family, I should be the only person in your life." That way, manipulating them to cut their family out. That way,
Yeah, but I
they
know
have-
there's like lots of guys that do that. That's like Donnie was sex trafficking. Like,
Yeah,
it's
but
Yeah.
it's just
but
narcissism.
Admiral Gibbs, those are shitty men, and we can call them shitty men that haven't done anything illegal yet or immoral to the extent of sex trafficking. But if you're doing it with the intent to elicit like sexual acts from them, then it becomes sex trafficking. So the intention
Yeah.
So
is
we
what
talked
matters.
about this on your show like last week though, right? So say we all were basically saying, well, you were at these sex parties, you knew there was some kind of implication of what's going to go down when we were talking about the Diddy stuff, right? And like y'all were saying, some of y'all were saying, well, some of these people should get a pass, or so we shouldn't be so sad because they knew what was going to happen. Well, same thing here. If you're telling me these hot models that are like OnlyFans girls already, or adjacent to OnlyFans girls, or like in that crew, are going to go hang out with Andrew Tate and his brother in a like random ass rich like area and like go on their boat and hang out with their cars, you're already telling me that there's not like some implication that you're fucking at some point there? Like, sorry, I'm not buying that.
That's not the extent of the lies, bro.
Yeah, it's a lot of it though. It's a lot of it.
Yeah, but all you need is deception or to demonstrate that is sex trafficking, right? It's not enough. Oh, hey, they told you come over, let's have sex, and that's accurate, and that's what happened. No,
That's-
it has
Well,
it
it's
has
not
to
the
be.
lie
I don't know
that
why we're
makes
still
it
on this
sex
topic, but,
trafficking.
like, come on.
The lie is a different part of it. But the point, like, we're not just talking about eyewitness testimony. We're also talking about phone recordings. We're also talking about text messages. We're also talking about, like, there's a ton of information here that says that they were coerced into staying and that they weren't allowed to
Well,
leave.
apparently not, because that case was dropped. Now this is a new
It
case.
wasn't dropped.
No.
Yeah.
There was a there was a case in the UK. So fuck. The
Britland,
UK. That there was one.
New case.
There was the one that they refused to prosecute. But the Romanian case is ongoing. To
Well,
my
the
understanding.
UK case is a civil case now that they're willing to extradite over. So.
Yeah, but I'm saying like the prosecutor didn't want to do that, and then they have a separate civil
The
case.
Romanian case still on.
Yeah, and the Romanian case is still. So there's two things that are still happening here. It's just that they refused to do a criminal prosecution in the UK.
And they also got arrested again in Romania for supposedly trying to flee the country, but it turned out it was a hoax. They weren't actually trying to flee the country, and so they were released on that recently. But that was a totally separate thing.
They probably use the defense. I'm just bullshitting to Aiden Ross, bro.
I just
Not
think
really.
it's interesting that Lactoid, like this is the type of person he really wants to like.
Oh,
So
most-
I'll talk about it. Right, he buys expensive drinks, which is cool. He smokes cool cigars, which is cool. On top of that, he's got a lot of cool cars. He's in
He
shape.
makes fun of Greta Thunberg.
Yeah,
right, you know?
he's funny. Okay,
Super cool.
he's got charisma. He's got the
Hell yeah.
He's got the riz for sure. I mean, fuck. There's a reason
He
he
does have
convinced. That's how he convinces all the girls to come over, right? Because he's got the riz. And
The Riz is money.
So
I got the money. Yeah,
it-
that's what he got.
it's not
He's got
just the
nothing
money.
else.
It's not just. I disagree. If you watch him, it's not just the money. He has a way of making you feel motivated to, like,
You're right.
Of course.
go
It's
out
really
and,
good
and,
course.
and take on the world.
So
So
this is
I-
despite weak genetics with balding. Like that's impressive.
So you're right. The balding's a problem, but like he's ripped or whatever, right? And so that's
The
pretty
Riz
good
is money and
genetics,
good looks.
overall, right? So
I feel like
I'm just saying.
I'm-
invited to Romania.
I'm just saying.
What's going on?
No. This
guy is
back pocket
sucking
career. Back pocket career.
You're trying to join the legal team.
This guy
Trying to join
is
the legal team
double
for Tate.
fisted.
Not a bad idea. But no. So I think I don't know. Like if it wasn't
What is
if
up?
I did not find out today the whole 15-year-old thing, I would totally be
I
on
said
board.
15 or 16. It's not.
Yeah,
not clear what
either
their actual
or.
ages
Either or,
at that
man.
time.
Look, I would totally hang out with Andrew
That's where you
Tate.
draw the line.
That's where I draw the
But-
line. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, if Andrew Tate had only been banging 18-year-olds and up, I'm cool.
I have to say it, Lactoid. You have poor taste in men.
I'm a principled man, okay? I don't fuck 16-year-olds. That's not my thing, right? 18 and up, baby. That's like,
How old are you?
I'm 28.
Okay.
Ugh.
Are
Well,
you
I
sure?
mean,
If he's in,
All right,
if he's in
yeah.
let's get this
it's
started.
legal to fuck a 16-year-old, so like it's fine.
No,
Yeah.
no. I'm pretty sure, like, if you're a U.S. citizen, it also may not be, actually. Because of
I don't think he's a U.S.
16's age of consent in most of the United States.
Is he?
Well, so you got to be real careful about that, Doobie.
Yeah, this is the Romeo and Juliet laws. Is how that
I need to
implies.
redo my date this
Yeah.
weekend. What do you mean be careful?
What'd you say?
Nothing.
We were talking about Jews earlier, Doobie. We
Wait,
missed
I'm-
you though.
Mr.
What are your
Why
thoughts?
do you
on
keep
Jews?
trying to get us? Why
What
do you
the
keep
fuck?
trying to avoid the topics, Lactoid?
Lactoid, hold on. I'm curious about the since you're a
No, I
lawyer.
like
About the
these
Jews? Go
topics.
ahead.
Let's
Oh,
talk
sorry.
Well, no, it's
lawyering,
just
okay.
so Jeremy. It's just so it's technically 16, quote unquote, but there's like typically like a 3-year like range, right? So it's 16, but within like.
Does
3
that mean like two 15-year-olds
It's different from
are
state
going to
to state.
prison?
Yeah, a different. Yeah.
Does that mean like two 15-year-olds having sex with
no,
each other?
there are Romeo and Juliet laws in a lot of states, right? Which is like they don't care if you're having sex with a minor as long as you're within a certain distance in age from that minor. So it's like, yeah, 16 will be the age of consent, but that's like for a 19-year-old and 18-year-old, not
Right,
for a
but most
fucking
laws
40-year-old.
don't
But
actually
what about-
address if you're under 16? And so he's saying, like, if two 15-year-olds have sex, technically,
It also
there
depends
aren't
on the
laws
state,
that
actually.
address whether it's legal or
There is a law in my
Both of
state.
them just have nothing.
So under technically it'd be statutory rape on both of them, but
Yeah, I was going to say, what happens
in-
to them?
in my state they have a separate statute called underage sexual activity, which is a misdemeanor.
they would actually have a criminal record as a misdemeanor if it was.
Misdemeanors are going to get
What-
wiped when you turn 18.
What?
Like, I
Yeah, it's
remember
really- it's
in
really
Georgia
strange.
when
A lot
I
of
was
these- a lot
younger,
of these
two
states
kids
also,
who were like 12 had sex, and they both got sent to like therapy and had to go to
Yeah,
court.
so they're both both the 12-year-olds get charged with like the misdemeanor underage sexual activity. The punishment's going to be therapy, community service, et cetera, et cetera.
Why would you want to have sex with a girl?
They turn 18. That shit's going to get wiped, and then that's how it works here.
You can have sex, yeah.
It's really interesting. A lot of states actually have like no or very little like limitations on like child marriage even. And so long as there's like I think a judge needs to sign off on it, and the parents need to consent, and then you can marry a kid. Like it's very strange that these laws are still on the books.
Like that fucking state senator in Tennessee.
I think a lot of them have been rolled back relatively recently, though. I remember having these conversations with somebody, and then I actually like looked at the laws, and it's actually more difficult to these days. There's still, I think, a couple states where like they
No, it's a lot. It's like California, for example, allows child marriage in that way. So if there's parental consent and
How young is the child?
Fuck, I don't remember. I was having.
We're talking about child marriage.
I don't know. But
Yeah.
Well, we are talking about
California-
children consenting.
Wow, California's fucked, dude.
That's why I love it here, bro.
There is no minimum age.
yeah, no minimum. That's okay.
That's a bad time to say that.
Yeah, and there's a few countries where that's
Someone
also
clip
true.
Someone clip what?
But,
That thing
Okay.
you just said. What was it you said?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You guys are great. All right, so let's get started. We'll have another guest join us, but they're off doing a little busy with family related things. But thanks all for being here. This is a Reverie Roundtable, which we have Mondays 8 p.m. Eastern. Whenever we get around to it, we have a great group of guests here. I'm really excited to talk all to these individuals. If you've enjoyed the conversation so far, consider supporting the channel. Subs to the channel, get the subs. Or consider hype chats or super chats. I gotta get that out of my usual spiel because apparently you can't do hype chats anymore, which is really like why? That was a great idea. They should have totally copied that thing from YouTube. It doesn't make sense.
How would Twitch want good ideas? That's not their business model.
That's antithesis.
Yeah. But anyway, super chats anyway, which way are appreciated. We'll read those. We'll respond to them. So consider supporting the channel that way. All right. Start with our friend Lactoid. How are you? Are you
He's drunk.
100% sober? Okay, good. Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Are you sober?
I'm completely sober. I am filling a market void caused by Andrew Tate's arrest, but in the good way, not the bad way. So I'm the new Top G, but
good
without
kind of
the
thing,
kid
right?
stuff. Yeah. You can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube.
I think Tom fits that description better than you.
Can I get that as like a piece of merch from you? I'm the new Top G, and then like with like an asterisk and smaller without the kids stuff.
Can you show me your abdominals?
Not yet. I'm working on that part. It's.
I'm sure the beer
I
will
might
help.
need some Ozempic. I mean, shit. I gotta work on it.
What color is your Bugatti, though?
I'm working on that one too.
but
You don't even
thank
have
you.
a boob.
I got
Really,
a
it's just the
sick
drinking
bus
that's
pass.
overlapping.
Yeah, it's a drinking. Maybe he also smokes cigars. Yeah, I don't know.
I do. I got some Black and Milds.
Do you? Why?
No,
Does your
no,
breath
no,
smell horrible? I
no.
feel like your breath smells horrible.
My breath
Like-
smells just fantastic.
It smells like cigars.
like
is what it
fucking
smells like.
It does
19?
not smell like cigar. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? I know.
Yeah, why would the
cultured,
cigars affect your breath? I don't know.
You're cultured. You're smoking milds. That's cultured. Stop.
I brush my teeth with an electric toothbrush, and I use mouthwash. So I mean, I'm good.
Okay, here's the thing.
What a
Smokers-
renaissance man.
Yeah, smokers don't understand this. Like I've made out with a few women here or there, right?
Ooh,
very proud of
nice.
myself.
Maybe I'm not
Very
top
proud.
G. Maybe I'm second in
Maybe,
command. Holy shit.
maybe you're not, right? But yeah, I've like made out with like smokers, and you can tell the moment you come in contact with them through smokers, right? Even before
Dude,
maybe
you can
even
tell when you go within
actually
5 feet of
kiss
them.
them. But no, like I've been in contact with smokers who are very good with like making sure they don't smell otherwise. Like the clothes are good, and they brush their teeth all the time and they use a mouthwash. But here's the thing: it gets into your lungs. So when you're kissing them, right, or even they breathe on you, right, you can smell it. Absolutely.
Okay, you don't inhale cigar smoke. Okay, you only inhale cigarette smoke, so it does not get in your lungs. First of all, and second of all, I literally got the mouthwash that you recommended, and it works pretty damn good. So
But I recommended mouthwash to you.
yeah, you did.
Lactoid, how do
Oh.
smokers get lung cancer?
They inhale the smoke.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's why. Well, cigar smokers
All right,
get
Bill
lip
Clinton.
cancer.
Got him.
Do you say? I
Cigar
don't know.
smokers get mouth
Cigar
cancer normally.
smoking is not,
Not-
from what I understand. Corey, correct me. The studies I've seen on cigar smoking is it's not significantly correlated with lung cancer.
Yeah, but it's
It's
not
not
it's not
pretty much.
disease free or risk free. You gotta like. I don't.
But
I-
vaping,
Yeah, yeah. That's
What's
an aside.
life without a little bit of risk? Come on, dude.
That's fair.
Yeah, honestly,
Um,
he's right.
Then why not go straight to cigarettes? And why not?
Well, that's
why
too
not-
much risk. It's risk versus reward. Okay, I don't want to be like addicted. Like that doesn't sound like fun. That sounds awful.
And
I'll-
vaping, you get that
He
pop.
got you there, Corey.
Yeah.
He got you.
Checkmate.
I will leave it alone.
This
But
man of culture.
moving on to our friend Scott, who we're really happy to have back. We've missed you, Scott. Honestly, we have. I have. Maybe I can't speak for the rest of them, but I have. So I'm really glad that you're here.
Appreciate you. Yep, I'm Scott Fabian Liberty. You can find me everywhere, Fabian Liberty. Live on YouTube. I fell. I fell like an old woman. Like life alert. Help. I've fallen.
Not the bad way. So I am filling a market void caused by Andrew Tate's arrest, but a good, in the good way, not the bad way. So I'm the new top G,
The good
but
kind of sexy.
without the kid stuff. Yeah. You can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. I am
Everywhere else. Fabian Liberty.
Appreciate you, friend. Let's go to our other friend Corey. Back with us. Really happy to have you, Corey. Corey is working on this beard, right? Like, he's gonna have like a full. I want you to replace like our Rich. You're gonna challenge him one day. This beard.
That's decades away. And even then, no matter what, I'll never live up to iCal in any capacity whatsoever. But yeah, always happy to be here. And I'm glad to hear that Scott is, back on his feet, metaphorically and literally speaking. And I hope that he makes a full recovery. But yeah, always happy to be here. Super grateful. You can find me on Twitch, Corey Campbell 84, Twitter, X, Instagram, YouTube. It's Corey Campbell. Looking forward to these great topics as usual.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Do You Want to Know a Dream? Back with us. Apparently, the gun show is in town. And hopefully he's got a license for that thing. Thank you for being here. Do You Want to Know a Dream? I'm really glad that you're around.
I'm glad I could be here and just out of a whim. Hey, can I get up here? And I got here. I'm so happy about that. Just saw what y'all were talking about. I was interested. I came up. You can find me on everywhere. D1, the letter O, Dream. And I'm very excited to be here. And I just want to read something that I saw in the comments about tomfoolery. It says, Tom looks like he could headbutt an 8-ball. That's just so.
It's true.
And Tom also looks.
Funny.
Tom is more of the top G than Lactoid is. Thank you.
Because
I'm
I have
hearing
less
about
hair.
Without the kid stuff.
About the kid stuff,
Yeah,
certainly,
kid
no, definitely, 100%.
How do you know? How do you know?
A little mystery in there. Okay.
Tom's great. Let's go to our friend Admiral Gibbs. Admiral Gibbs, how are you, friend?
I am hung the fuck over. Let me tell you, it is
Okay.
hard times out here today. Y'all keep saying lactoid Zoc. I'm over here just like hanging on by a thread. But I'm here, glad to be here. It's good times. Ready to do some debating. I'm Admiral Gibbs. You can find me on Admiral Gibbs and everything.
Okay. We have my friend, my good friend Doobie, is with us. Doobie, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Thank you so much. All right, Tom Fruley. Thank you also. It was really nice to have our friend Tom. He's it's really good to. I'm just glad your presence is here again. I really missed you like before. You know, it's been we went for a long absence without you, but you're around now, and it makes me happy.
Yeah, I appreciate it. No other debate panel will have me anymore, so now this is the bottom.
Wow.
Of the barrel.
That's high praise for Prime. You're the only one that'll accept me.
Whoa, dude.
Tom was a Chad and honest.
You were my
with people,
last
and then I heard
choice,
their
by
shit.
the way. Anyways,
Yeah, follow me on YouTube, Tom Foolery Show, youtube.com/Tom Foolery Show.
I like to think of my my channel as the dregs of Twitch. No, that works for me. I'll take it.
My shirt's gonna say the real Top G without all the kids stuff? Question mark.
I see now why this is the last resort. Coming together.
Wow. Tom, he's coming out swinging today. We love to see it.
Hey,
and
yo.
What? That wasn't the moment. That wasn't the okay. I'm just leaving. I'm pushing past it. Ali is here. Made it just in time. All right. That's all you need, right? In life. Ali, thanks for coming through. How are you, friend?
I'm doing great, man. Just had dinner. About to have a pineapple juice from Lebanon. Comes in a triangle triangle pyramid container.
You broke fast?
Oh yeah, yes. Where do we go around on that one? But yeah, how's everyone else doing?
We're doing all right. When I went to Japan, they sell in their convenience stores. They have great convenience stores. They have interesting things there. But like one of the things they have are these like sandwiches. Like they sell them as like these triangle wedges. And they're starting to infiltrate the West now. But
The ones that you open them up and you make the sandwich as you open up the wrapper.
pardon me.
No, it's pre-made. It's put together. Yeah. And it's really good. Oh my god! Like they had these I had like this egg sandwich. Like they had these I don't know what it was, but like eggs in them, and it was fucking fantastic. Oh, I like lived on that when I was there.
They also don't put eggs in the fridge.
You don't put eggs
Most
in the
people don't
fridge?
do that.
We're the only.
Most-
I think
most countries
we
don't.
do it right. We're the only ones that have eggs in the fridge, right?
Yeah. There's a specific. It has to do with the way you prepare the eggs and keep them from being spoiled. And the way that America does it, you have to put them in fridges. In other places, you don't. But yeah, there's advantages and disadvantages. And we got lost in that. Let's go. Let's get
We've
started.
gotten lost a fucking lot tonight. All right.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
8:59.
It's 8:59. Indeed, it has. All right. So, topic 1: new miracle weight loss drugs have been approved for teens. The drugs, like Ozempic, work by massively suppressing appetite. They may also help prevent heart disease. However, giving them to children has received pushback due to questions about how this will affect development, especially since these drugs require you to stay on them permanently. On top of that, the drugs aren't being covered by private insurers, partly due to their expense. Do you think children should be allowed to take such medication forever, rather than dealing with obesity through other means? Is this sending a poor message to children? And should efforts be made to allow for widespread distribution of this drug in a nation with stubbornly rising obesity rates? There saw an article showing how this is now being introduced into the teenage population as an answer. I'm not sure it necessarily should be that answer. So I'll leave it at that. And everyone, let's try to keep our intro short to make up for everything else. So, Lactoid?
My take on this is super milk toast. Like generally speaking, because it seems like a band-aid, you want to teach the kids how to like not get fat or whatever, and punish the parents if they keep doing it, right? But for the kids who are like really fat, like we're talking like the spilling over themselves when they try to get in the desk or whatever, it's not functional. Like those kids, maybe they get a shot or two. Okay, that's my opinion.
Thank you for that. Oh boy, I think Black Shit's gonna be fun tonight. I got a feeling.
For once.
He's in a mode.
Let's go to Scott.
Feeling zesty.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is we should always celebrate when a new drug hits the market because of the innovation and the ability for us to be able to manage diseases. Like that's always a good thing when a new drug, new things are out there. The problem is a much greater problem than this specific drug, which is that our healthcare system, this is not just America, but Western society in general, is a disease managed care system, not a healthcare system. We do not have a healthcare system. We manage chronic disease and we find out ways by using intellectual property to keep people on drugs for a very long time. Somebody's moving all around and typing, I can hear it, but oh, it's tomfoolery again.
It's almost
Um,
definitely Tom.
Yeah, I saw him light up. But yeah, so that is a huge problem. It is a fucking travesty that any doctor would prescribe a child a GLP-1 before getting them genetic testing. That right there is fucking insane. That you can spend a few $100s to find out if you have the motherfucker gene. So for people that don't know, there's just one of many examples. MTHFR gene is a gene that roughly 10 to 15% of Europeans and something like I can't want to say it's like 30% of Hispanics have both alleles. And this mutation makes it difficult for you to process folic acid. And if you can't process folic acid, what you end up with is an overabundance of homocysteine. Okay, so what does that mean for 10 to 15% of white people and 30% of Hispanics? That means that you can't eat bread, you can't take normal vitamins, you can't eat leafy greens that are sprayed with folic acid. Folic acid is fucking everywhere, and a massive chunk of Americans are just allergic to the shit. Or at the very least have, I won't say allergic, but they have difficulty processing it, which builds up too much of one hormone that's been linked to cancer. It's been linked to like dementia, stroke, heart disease. It's a 5, what is it, like molecule? It's not molemules or whatever per liter.
Millimole.
Is millimoles. Thank you for the term. It leads to 33.6% increase in all-cause mortality. Like the idea that we're giving kids Ozempic is fucking insane. I have a lot more to say about socialism, about time preference behavior, about the government, etc. But yes, I celebrate Ozempic existing, but it is a symptom. We are seeing just how disgusting our healthcare system is by the fact that we're even having this conversation instead of so many other things that we could be doing to increase health.
Corey, please.
Well, so I certainly agree with what Scott said in terms of, not a healthcare system, essentially like no focus on prevention and just largely reactionary. And like, yeah, there appear to be some bad incentives in terms of, prescribing drugs and, getting people pretty much to take drugs for the rest of their lives potentially. And also just maybe as a point of clarification, like that gene, that's not the technical term for it. It's the methylene tetrahydrofolate gene. The geneticists did not
That's
come
just
up.
the nickname. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
but
Yes.
geneticists don't use that term.
Motherfucker gene.
Yes, that is mostly
MTHFR.
Yes. And that information might be useful. And I haven't done a deep dive. I know the gene. I know like the metabolism. I don't know that it's like fully been linked with like obesity. Maybe like some increased risk I can see. But I don't know that genetic screening would be sufficient. But like understandable. Like I guess it's a valid criticism. Like ideally we'd all have, I guess, access to genetic screening. But to keep it concise, at the end of the day, this is uncharted territory in terms of, how do we treat kids with overweight and obesity and morbid obesity. I'll largely defer to the experts. From what I've seen in the clinical trials, and I'll post them in the Discord, they're having pretty dramatic results in terms of like significantly reducing like BMI, as in this child is starting off at a BMI of like 38-40, like morbidly obese territory, and they're getting it down to like almost close to normal BMI. Obviously, there's criticisms towards BMI, but they're controlling for that. So basically, I'll wait to see what the data says. But I'm so far in favor of like as this being a potential treatment. I'll leave it there for now.
Do you want to know?
Yeah, so I'll make this as short as possible. First, free will doesn't exist. Two, when it comes to obesity, I view it as something like ADHD. So to reduce somebody's weight who is obese, it's like to increase somebody's attention levels if they have ADHD. So there are like non-drug related ways that you can make someone eat less, just like there's non-drug related ways to have someone focus more. But at the same time, there are going to be people who they can't help themselves but to do what they're doing, which is everybody. And so when it's to their detriment, which is not everybody, then you're gonna have to step in chemically, biologically through medication. If society is not already doing the prevention of like setting people up socially, socializing them to be better people. There you go.
Thanks so much. Let's go to our friend Admiral Gibbs. And his cat, they threw away.
Yeah, I had to put the cat down real quick. She'll come back, but she's gonna scratch me during this opening because when I get loud, it's like
Who might need
Let me
Ozempic themselves.
yeah. Let me tell you something. I don't have. I have the solution. It ain't no mono mules. It ain't no Zempic. It ain't whatever this week. I mean, you know what it is? It's bringing back the whoopings. I'm so sick of these tired, soft-ass kids getting medication for bullshit that can be handled with a belt. Like, listen, you start acting up, whooping. You're eating like a fatty all the time, whooping. When I was a young kid, guess what? I was doing stupid things, whooping. We go get a coach. Time to do some laps, boy. You acting up real bad. Oh, looks like you did that. Up downs. Look, it's real simple. Stop giving out participation trophies. Get back into some more sports in schools. Start giving out more whoopings, and we stop giving out drugs for every little misnomer. You know, Dream mentioned ADHD. You know what? I take Adderall. Yeah, it helps with my ADHD. But guess what? I didn't get that till I was well into my mid-20s. And even then, if I go weeks without taking it, great. You know why? Because I took enough whoopings every time I acted up and was distracted by some ADHD issues. Same thing with being a little fatty. You being a little fatty, go hit the gym, go get motivated. Get somebody like what's that guy's name? God, who's gonna carry the boats guy to yell at you, and you'll get back in shape. David Goggins, that's who I'm talking about.
I just love him. I love him, and I want to keep him. Fuck you all. I'm going to keep him. So let's go to
No argument for me. You can have him.
Oh, well, you'd get a whooping if there was, right? Let's go to our friend Doobie.
So I think most of you probably know this about me. I think I've said this before, but I was really, really fat when I was younger. I think at the end of high school, I weighed over 400 pounds. Like I was really, really, really fat. And unfortunately for me, this wasn't available back then. I'm 35 now, so that's not that long ago, fucking assholes. But for me, it wasn't like just to kind of speak to what Gibbs was saying for a bit. It's not like I was just overeating because I was like disobeying my parents or something. These were bad habits that I picked up that my parents had actually instilled in me because they were all fat too at the time. So I don't think beating is just gonna fix that. I think yeah, obviously it'd been better to deal with these things at home from a very young age to kind of instill good eating habits and a good relationship with food. But a lot of kids miss that, right? Just because one, the parents don't know enough, or the parents also have a bad relationship with food, or there's some other thing happening that's pushing them to use food as like a crutch or something. So they just fall into these bad habits, and it's very, very difficult to break out of these. It took me years to lose the weight. I think in total, like I would say about almost 5 years, so 4 to 5 years to get down to the weight that I was happy with, and that I'm where I've managed to stay, thankfully, since I was like 24, 25. And I think that one of the big downfalls along that track, one of the reasons it took me so long was, one, I had a lot of weight to lose. I had like 200 some pounds to lose. But there were times where I relapsed, right? Where I just fell into the old habits again, didn't even realize I was doing it. And I had to fucking start all over again, right? Or I would gain back 10 pounds and I was just like, oh shit, I'm gaining weight and I shouldn't be gaining weight. I'm working out, but I'm also falling back into bad eating habits. Or I think as I'm doing so well, I can sneak things in here and there, and you just can't, right? Because it's like an addiction. And you fall back into it and it grabs you and you just need to break the mindset all over again. So I think what these things do, my understanding, is they And my understanding is very basic. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I don't have any experience with giving people medication or anything. But it's they mimic some kind of hormone that tells your brain that you're full, right? And it so that you process the food that you have eaten more slowly, so you feel full for longer, right? And I don't know what other like side effects this could have, but that seems to be helping a lot of people because I think one of the things that I definitely struggled with as a kid and as a teenager is I would just eat if I could eat. You know, if something was good was around and I didn't feel stuffed, I was like, oh, well, shit, that tastes good, so I'm just gonna eat it, right? Even if I didn't actually need to eat it, I had a meal earlier, but because there was room for it, I just stuff it in there because it tastes good, so why not? So if this is allowing people to kind of break through those kind of the situations because they still feel full, and it's making it easier for them to work out. Because another thing that I definitely struggled with at the start, was like working out, going to the gym, walking, is just the fucking pain that comes when you're 400 plus pounds and you're trying to walk for any longer than fucking 15 minutes, okay? Or trying to walk upstairs, or trying to run, or do anything. There's a lot of pain that's generated when you're going through this. So like anything that I think will have them break the food impulse, the eating impulse, and stay on the track to losing weight, I think is beneficial. And again, obviously, I'd hope they'd have access to other resources before they get to this point where they don't need to do this. But if they do need to do this, I think it's better than letting them stay fat longer.
Thank you so much, DB. And thanks for bringing up that point about the pain. I hadn't really considered that, especially when you're talking about young individuals, maybe for older, but like not really for young individuals. But that's really good to know. I kind of want to hear more about that at some point. But thank you so much. Let's go to our friend Tom.
Yeah, I don't really like the phrasing in the question, especially when these drugs require you to stay on them permanently. You can stop taking the drugs, and doctors will allow you to stop taking the drugs. You'll just go through withdrawal, have a greater appetite, maybe have some blood sugar problems. You can take the medication for a while to have a lack of appetite and get into new eating patterns, and then stop taking the medication, hoping that you'll continue those new eating patterns, or you can take it for the rest of your life if you're unlikely to hold on to those new eating patterns. But the FDA said a couple years ago that the medication stunted developmental processes, but I haven't actually seen the exact parts of development that it stunts. So I like to see that. If it's something like height or some shit, it might be worth it to live a healthier life and be more in shape just to be a little bit shorter. If it's cognitive processing or like something with the prefrontal cortex that's stunted, then I think I'd be a lot more against it. I like to hope that we get into that at some point, but we're probably just going to talk about whether or not the FDA should exist in the first place because of all of the libertarians on the panel. So looking forward to that.
We only have one, Scott.
His lactose not an anarchist.
I'm a socialist, apparently.
Don't ask, bitch. I won't tell you. All right, treat me like fucking the military under Bill Clinton.
Oh my God. I think that's an interesting question that Tom brought up, and it's a question that, like, I think all guys have been asked in one form or another, right? Would you give a few inches of height for inches on your dick? It's basically what he's saying here, right? So, like, vertical height or horizontal
being
width,
able to
right?
see your dick, at least, yeah.
Yeah, being able to see your
it from all
dick.
inches,
Yeah. But that actually might be worth. Like, if I don't know if it's a height thing, but like that might be something worth discussing, really. Let's go to our friend Ali.
Yeah. So the nice answer is we got to find a way for low income people to be able to eat better, cheaper, without having to resort to like McDonald's and things, because even that's getting to be expensive, right? If that's what they're resorting to eat, and that's bad for the other people. Every time I get on this panel, it seems more and more I just want to sue the parents for negligence. It's the parents' fault that the kids are getting fat. And so us giving like a Band-Aid of here's Ozempic. All right, cool. So they're getting fat. Here's Ozempic. They're not listening to you. Here's a streamer that you can give them the iPad to and like drift them away. I'm working. They need their time isn't full, so I got to put them in school for this amount of time. It's just at a certain point we're just encouraging negligence. So I feel like in order to get these parents back involved in the kids' lives, negligence becomes more of a regular thing that we sue them for. And yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Open to the panel.
Well,
Go ahead,
so
Phoebe.
Can I just like say a couple clarifying things before
Sure.
we get started? So yes, Tom Fuller, you're correct that you can go off of it, but it is going to be difficult to go off of it. There's going to be a lot of fear there, and the doctors are going to do everything they can to keep you on it, as well as everyone that has an interest in making money. So it's kind of like you're right that it's maybe not fair to say that it is permanent, but it is intended to be a long-term medication, etc. Also, when you were asking about the giving up height, so yes, it is height that we're talking about, right? It is physical mass, but we're also talking about bone density, right? And so when you give up height, you give up bone density. And so when you give up bone density, that's when you start talking about risks of osteoporosis. You start talking about risks of like back injuries as you get old. Like it's not just height that you're losing, but like the strength of your spine. And that might not be something you notice when you're younger, but as you get older is going to be a pretty serious fucking thing that you gave up. So it's not just going to be like 1 or 2 inches of height, but 1 or 2 inches of height you lost because your bones didn't strengthen up. I mean, you might float better. Like you might be decent at swimming,
So can I ask,
but for
Scott,
everything else, it's not going to be great.
Scott, just to dig into that, because I didn't read anything about the bone density thing. So do you know if like how long into somebody using it does this become a problem? So if they were to do it for like 3 months, is it? Like
I don't think there's nowhere near enough data to
Okay, yeah.
like we're at the data suggests this occurs stage, not like the mapping the
I
exact.
see.
Like,
Yeah.
there's nowhere near enough data. Because that's the thing about ethics in science when you talk about medication and when you talk about psychology, right? Is that there's a ton of things that you can't do. Mainly what those things are that are like the main unethical things, right? Is that if you're curious about whether or not something's bad, you can't just give it to people to see how bad it is, right? Like it has to be something that you think is good and then you study it and then you learn is bad, right?
Yeah,
That's like a
yeah,
super
I'd
simplistic
agree with
version
that.
of it, right?
No, I think that I didn't include this in my opening thing, but I think it would make sense to say that because if there's a risk that if they were to get off this thing, like let's say they lose all the weight and they feel like they're able to get off of it and then they start getting it back. Well, obviously, the things that led to them gaining all that weight in the first place weren't dealt with, right?
Yeah.
Like these are probably going to be issues at home, maybe some mental health problems, maybe something, right? Some other thing that is leading them to eat this much.
Right,
For
some
me,
other
it
medical
was-
issue.
Yeah, for me it was definitely that, right? I didn't realize this till as an adult, but it was definitely like the kind of like abusive environment I grew up as a kid. I think I retreated to food as for like comfort or some shit, and I think a lot of people do that.
Admiral Gibbs, which
You
is
just needed more
haven't
women.
been beat
Needed
enough.
more
Yeah,
You
abuse.
need to be beat
Right.
in
That's the
association
solution.
with your eating, and that won't cause an eating disorder
Yeah, of
because
course.
Listen.
reasons.
I'm just saying,
And
like,
I
if you
think-
go run like 6 miles, it doesn't matter how much you're eating.
But Gibbs, I know this from experience, right? So when you're 400 plus
Can't argue
pounds
with that.
and you're running
Down.
for fucking 500 feet, your ankles, your knees, everything's gonna be burning for the next week. You're gonna be
Yeah, but you have to
I-
get to
yeah,
that point. You have
but
to
you
get to
burn
that
more
point
weight,
as
though,
a
right?
kid.
But to be, I actually like
I
very
don't know.
sympathetic
You're,
to that,
you're
right?
moving
I
more
was-
mass, right? So it's like you're burning more for 500 feet than maybe
I-
like
and
I
that
would
was
for
actually-
2
maybe
miles.
for that. Maybe
That,
for
that was
Jimmy,
actually the
that minute,
philosophy
but-
that I grew up with. The philosophy I grew up with is because I ate like a I don't know how to describe it, but I ate whatever I wanted at any time that I wanted. Is because I was actively working out, doing every sport that I could for like
Yeah.
4 hours a day.
So, but
So like
I
it didn't matter what I ate because I
So-
always burned it off.
Yeah, Juby, I want to address that exactly though, because I actually went through that when
But
I was
not
going
anymore.
from high school to. I know I'm fat now, but my body's just destroyed from sports now. But like back in high school, I was all state everything, right? And like I got real fat towards the end, like after my senior year, because whatever. And then I wanted to walk on A&M's wrestling team, so I had to lose the weight, And it's real hard when you're walking around 330 and your weight class is supposed to be like 155 or 159 or whatever. And like, yeah, you're right. Like it sucks. You go run 500 feet, you're sweating and you're already chafing. Well, you know what? Guess what? Tough titties, boys. Time for you to go get some baby powder. Throw that on your legs. That way you don't get the chafe.
Okay, but
Maybe then
Gibbs-
start running. Like, I mean, I'm sorry. It sucks to suck,
Gibbs,
but
this makes sense if you
tough it
built
out.
up that kind of tolerance before you got that fat. But the people that we're talking about, me, I mean, I was in high school football, right? So and before that, I was active in a way. I was obviously not very active in the way that I should because I weighed almost 400 pounds out of high school. But I was the family mule, right? So I lifted all the heavy shit all the time. Right? Anytime there's yard work to do, I did it. I was either digging holes and all that shit, right? So I was used to like physical labor. That is an issue. But when you're actually like focused and working out and trying to lose weight, you're gonna run, you're gonna get on the treadmill, you can do all this shit. And if you try to do that at 400 pounds or 300 pounds, and you don't have that kind of tolerance built up, it's gonna knock you out for an entire week. So you're gonna work out for the one day, and then you're fucked for the rest of the week because you can barely move.
Well, then you have to get up and go the next
Work,
day.
working
Well,
out isn't even the
it's
primary
called
way to lose
mental
weight.
fortitude. It's called mental fortitude.
I think you're
Diet is
underestimating.
a primary way to.
Diet is the
I-
primary way to
80%
lose weight. Yeah,
I think you're underestimating just like how much it is ingrained, the culture of how you eat as you grew up. And so like there's like I think one of the most, if not the number one contributing factor, whether or not to predict somebody's going to be obese, is whether or not their parents are obese. And that's because of the eating habits that their parents do in front of the kids and like do to their parents. And then the chances of the reason why they're obese is because their parents are obese, and et cetera, et cetera. And so what I'm trying to say is, even though I had this philosophy of, and I was really fit all throughout my life until like later years of college, where I kind of gained some weight, as you can see right now. But I was super fit because I worked out everything I ate, but those eating habits didn't stop when I stopped working out. Because when I went to college, I didn't do any sports. So it's like I maintained the eating habits, and that's why I've kind of gained the weight. I should be at 180, 170 right now, but I'm at 200, and it's hard to like go and do a good healthy diet that I know is good for me, but the habit is hard to do from just a psychological standpoint. Even though I know what's good for me, it's just hard to do.
So hold on. The question at hand is: ought we be giving children Ozempic? Right? Ought we be using drugs? And I'm not using drugs as like a scary word. I just mean like an intervention that costs money, that is very expensive for a lot of people. I mean,
Although
I'm
it shouldn't
sure,
be. That's an inflated price.
I absolutely agree. Like it's a GLP-1, it's a fucking peptide, right? Like it should be like $40. It's intellectual property that has made the GLP-1s so fucking expensive. And there's a reason
agree.
some of them are like $300 and some of them are $1,000, right? Ozempic is a big name brand, right? But there are other GLP-1s here that are basically the exact same fucking thing that are cheaper. But regardless, setting that aside, right? That's the question at hand. And so when we're talking about weight loss and diet and things, there's a lot of things that we can discuss about how to correct these things. But the question at hand is, ought we be giving them these drugs? And I think the answer is, well, we shouldn't be stopping anyone from this, right? Especially if they seem to be getting good results. But we also should be looking at the underlying problems here. And the underlying problems here in America are not, hey, I used to be fat and this is what happened. And I appreciate that anecdotal evidence. I do. But the underlying problem here is that it's roughly 80% diet and it's roughly 20% exercise. Right? If you talk to any nutritionist and most doctors, most researchers, they'll say it's overwhelmingly diet with exercise having some effect. Yes, the golden rule is calories in, calories out, but there's a lot of other factors here. And we should be wondering why, if it's 80% diet, why is it that in the 1970s, everybody was fucking skinny compared to now, and all of a sudden now we're all fucking fat? And people go, oh, well, it's because we don't work out as much. Well, if it's 80% diet and 20% working out, something's not fucking adding up. And what's not adding up is that our diets have changed drastically from the 1970s. The amount of ultra processed food we're eating, the amount of bullshit that we're eating, the amount of calories and portion control and sizes that we're eating. And we need to do something about that in this nation, whether it's some stupid fucking socialist solution of like a better food pyramid that's probably not going to fucking work anyway, or it's some other solution that's market driven in some capacity. And I think
also
that
smoke
Ozempic
less than in
is
the
a
70s too.
band-aid. Well,
You know what else is different? You know what else?
Vaping.
I'm obese
You know-
kids.
Well,
You know
hold
what
on.
else is
Cigarettes.
different?
So tobacco does smokers? They don't get fat in the same way.
Well, you know what else is different from the 70s?
Growth
We were giving whoopings to children whenever they were being little baby-act bitches. It's time to stop
Shut the
being
fuck
baby.
up, dude. You're just
I'm
gonna cause
100%.
fucking.
I'm 100% serious.
why do
you know,
you
you're
say
sitting here.
this is
You
content
no,
brain
it's
retard
absolutely
shit?
no, it is absolutely correct. I actually disagree with this.
You're just gonna
80-20
give
thing.
children eating
No,
disorders.
no. Well, good. Then maybe they need him. They can
And
get
brain
some
damage.
shit. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not buying this bullshit that y'all are saying.
Hey, maybe they need it.
Children into fucking eating better.
Listen, whenever I was working out back in the day, getting all in shape and all that goodie, I was eating like dog shit. You know, it didn't matter because guess what? You were spending the time in the gym getting in shape. Anybody can get in shape, eating almost whatever dog shit you want, as long as you're actually putting in the work. So don't be sitting here telling me it's only diet, lordy. No. It's soft
Nobody
ass
said that.
being soft ass
being
bitches.
stupid.
That's not what he said.
If you're not
That's
getting
absolutely
protein,
what he
said.
if you're not getting
This is
protein, you're not gonna get muscle.
is
So
like
it's like if
TikTok
your
brain
diet is all
Yeah,
sugar,
This is you trying to get a
your diet is all
Gen
sugar.
X
You're just
moment.
not. Yeah, like you're just
Yeah, let
not
me give
gonna
you an
get.
example. So, like when I was in high school, I was playing football and basketball the entire time. But like the amount of intake that I had was way higher than it is now. But if I have that same intake today, I'm gonna get super fat because I'm not playing football and basketball every day. I'm not going through puberty. I'm not like the what it is that my body's using this shit for, the energy and the growth and all of that. It's not the same anymore. And so like the diet is only one small part of what it is that you're doing, but also like how your life activities, your lifestyle, and the amount of exercise you get is going to be probably more important than anything else. You can have a fucking horrible diet, and if you're out running around all the time and working out, or you eat at the right times of the day and
Hold
like,
on.
go
Hold on, no.
fast for longer,
You can have.
like there's a
That's not true.
lot more that goes into it.
That's not
What's
true.
not
You
true?
can have a lot of calories, right? Michael Phelps at the peak of training for the Olympics was eating 12 to 20,000 calories a day, right? You can eat a lot of calories, but if you eat shit food that makes you feel like shit, you're not going to get up and moving. You're going to eating shit food that is ultra processed, that's full of a crap is going to have you sitting on the couch fucking tired like a fucking bear that just got shot with a tranquilizer dart, just
True.
Yeah, you're not gonna go swimming after eating beef
Like, you're not-
stroganoff.
right. Like if you're drinking a bunch of soda and you're having these ups and downs from all this sugar and caffeine, up and down, as opposed to getting the same, maybe like a third of the amount of sugar from a bowl of grapes that actually is going to like be somewhat fulfilling. There's going to be two totally different things. Like I do agree that it is calories in, calories out at the end of the day. And there are factors that change that, such as like the length of your small intestine and, you know, how your metabolism might be because of certain thyroid issues or certain chemical issues, the way that you process food or, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But for the most part, it's calories in, calories out. And if you work out more, you will burn more calories. Therefore, you can eat more. But if you eat crap shit food, yes, if you go work it out, you'll burn it off. But if you're eating crap shit food, you're not going to have the energy to fucking go work out because you're eating shit that's not giving you fuel. Instead, it's giving you disease.
So I don't really. So I just want to comment briefly. So I don't really disagree with anything that you said, Scott. What I will say, just maybe as a caveat of like probably that calorie intake of Michael Phelps probably overestimated. But even then, even granted, he probably wasn't reaching that amount of calorie intake through like cauliflower and broccoli. If you're eating 12,000 calories of
no, he was eating a fuck ton of
carbohydrates,
red meat, and I think he was also eating some greasy shit, some food that you probably would be terrible for you, right? But of course, he built up to that as like an Olympic, as the most prolific gold medalist, Olympic athlete ever. I think. Has anyone beaten Michael Phelps' record yet?
At least for swimming, I'm pretty sure.
Right. So I mean, like we're talking about a very special specimen. Also, he has Marfan's and like the good kind, right? Like he's a very special specimen in terms of his body. But what I'm trying to say is that like, yeah, I mean, you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, we get it.
Yes, it is calories in, calories out. But if you're eating shit, you're gonna feel like shit, and if you're gonna feel like shit, you're not gonna go work out. Like that's not the shit that fuels you.
I also want to add that I think one of the biggest contributing factors is just the education or like the knowledge of how to lose weight. Because I can't imagine how many times people have told me, I don't know, man, I keep working out and I'm still not losing weight. Like they actually don't know that they need to work out long enough or more than what they eat, or just like, because they're probably not changing their diets and just increasing their workout, but not working out enough to like eclipse their diet calorie
Well,
intake.
well, many people
So-
overestimate how many calories are burned in any like workout session. People think like an hour on a
And
treadmill.
vice versa.
Yeah, that
Right.
too. But
They've
many
done
people,
studies with nutritionists where they underestimate how many ounces of basic everything. When people count their calories, even nutritionists undercount when they're counting.
Yeah,
Hold on.
uh,
Are you taught?
That's why I overcount just to
Because
just to make sure.
I know one of them, and this is a big thing, right? Are you talking about a nutritionist, a person who is like not trained, or a dietitian who goes through
registered dietitian.
like
Yeah.
nutritional training? Dietitians
mean
get very
registered
upset when you get
dietitian.
them mixed up. Go ahead.
Okay, whatever. All I'm saying is registered dietitians. They've done research where like they'll take like a control group and then people that like say that they're really good at counting their nutrients and shit, and then people that are registered dietitians, and all of them for the most part will like when they measure out their food, they'll add a little. They'll just add a little bit. Like they're getting more calories than they think they're getting.
Yeah, people are not really great. Well, no one's perfect at estimating the amount of calories they intake, and also they overestimate how much an hour on the treadmill like actually burns. Where they think yeah, I've had that cheeseburger, but now hour on the treadmill is going to like nullify that. No, you pretty much like maybe at most like a couple hundred calories. Obviously depending on your fitness level and speed, but like yeah, they just don't have a good way of gauging how many calories they're intaking and expending.
Well, it's also,
I
I mean, I eat pretty shit food right now. I eat like mostly like Taco Bell, McDonald's, shit like that. But I mostly eat in the mornings, and then I don't eat for I think it's 16 hours total before I eat. Another
Yeah, you're doing
meal.
that
So I'll eat
Ramadan,
2 meals.
but in the
Yeah,
morning.
so it's intermittent
Reverse
fasting, where
Ramadan.
I'll eat. It's
Yeah.
intermittent fasting where I'm eating like lunch, early breakfast, and then don't really eat for about 16 hours, and then eat again.
So can I drag
the
this
next
back
morning,
to
and that seems to do a lot to keep me in shape, keep calories burning at a high rate. So it's not even just like your exercise or calorie intake, but also when you eat and how long you go without eating.
GB.
Right. So the point that I was going to get to before Gibbs distracted me with that line was I think it makes sense to if people were gaining the weight back when they get off this stuff. I think it obviously makes sense to like use the time that they are taking this to have them try to track down the reasons that they're getting this fat. In the case of children, they're probably not buying their own food. They're probably not making their own food at home. So it's probably going to be some issue they need to talk to the parents about. And I think that at some level, right, I think you do need to consider this a type of neglect. If parents are allowing their child to get this fat, right? And when I say this fat, I'm not talking about, they're like 50 pounds overweight. I'm talking like 100, 200 pounds overweight.
Barring a serious medical issue, of course, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Now, if it is just that the parents aren't watching what they're eating, or the parents are giving them access to way more food than they should have, then yeah, I think you need to treat it like a form of neglect. And I think that if that just means that the parents need to be educated too, right? About like, hey, stop giving your kids this kind of food because it's bad and yada yada. That's fine, right? But there needs to be something done to correct the actual causes behind this.
I mean, we're seeing
It's
that like
also
even
on-
adults,
the
even
amount
adults that
of
take
time that they have to cook food. Like my parents, my mom cooked like every meal of the day for us when we were kids, but lots of parents don't have time to do that, and so they fall back to just like ordering.
it takes like 20 minutes to
That's a
make
Coke.
food, man. That's not a real thing.
Yeah, it's cap.
Most people are lazy, and even you see adults like throughout my lifetime. We've had a bunch of weight loss pills that people take. We see like with Ozempic. I see a bunch of adults on Ozempic that just do it. They do the Ozempic, they lose the weight, but they don't change the diet. They don't care. All they care about is the aesthetic of the weight loss, and that's what's happening with the kids. Is no one really seems to care about the diet or the health of the kid. They just care. Oh, they're fat. Let's get them skinny, and then we're done. And so even so we can't just expect kids that are on Ozempic to learn on their own. Hey, let me form a proper diet because I'm losing the weight. That's like it's the parents' responsibility.
Hold on, devil's advocate here, though, right? Like, just to be fair, I'm not a big fan of Ozempic, obviously, but just to be fair, if you have someone that is, let's say, 5'5" and 350 pounds, right? And you can find any way to get 150 pounds off of this person and get them to be 200 pounds, it is going to drastically open up more opportunities for them to be able to be healthier.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, but
Number one, it's going to change their eating habits, at least in some regards. You know, they can go back to bad old eating habits when they get off of the Ozempic. But another thing too is that yes, there is a percentage of this equation which is working out. And as Doobie noted, when you are morbidly obese, just the fucking pressure on your ankles can be dangerous to do certain activities. And if you can lose that 150 pounds to where now you can safely go to the gym and get on the treadmill for a little while and do certain things, you open up opportunities to actually be able to develop those good habits. But I absolutely agree with you that if you don't do anything beyond that, that it is in many ways wasted.
and that's
because,
the
you know,
issue.
yeah.
Wait,
And so gyms are relatively cheap, but personal trainers are like extremely fucking expensive, right? So if you want insurance to cover anything, insurance should cover the personal trainers. Personal trainers should work alongside dietitians or physicians, whoever's prescribing the Ozempic, so that these things can happen. But it's too expensive for the average person or for the
Insurance
broke
isn't-
person.
Insurance
not
companies
going to.
never going to do that. The
Yeah, I
reason
know.
Insurance
I know.
companies are never going to do that. It's not the fucking profit model, because they don't do it in fucking socialist countries either.
Yeah.
It's because we, as I said before, we have a disease managed care system. We don't have a healthcare
Yeah.
system.
I know.
Insurance companies, either under socialism or under the private market, are not currently incentivized to cure problems, or they're not engaged in low time preference behavior. They're not looking towards the long term. And the reason they're not looking toward the long term, at least in the American care system, is like every insurance company knows that they have you for like 2 to 3 years until you switch jobs. Right? We no longer live in a country where people get jobs where they have the same job and the same healthcare provider for like 30 years. They know when they have you that they have you for 2 to 3 years. And then you're going to be somebody else's problem. And so if I have you for 2 to 3 years, what I want medications and drugs that my pharmacy benefit managers have gotten me a really good deal on, right? That are going to give me a really good return. And so these are going to be like tier 1 drugs. And I'm going to give you those tier 1 drugs for 2 to 3 years. And then as you develop more issues down the road, you're somebody else's fucking problem. Either you're, Medicare's problem, or you're whatever other job's problem that you have. And so until we start addressing those issues, like we're never going to be able to fix this problem. Like it's like we have to start going deeper in order to fix these issues. And Ozempic is just another Band-Aid.
and I want to bring back.
That's why the negligence charge would be for me, because you need a way for parents to be more invested in these kids' lives. We're just pushing more and more parents away from being invested in their kids' lives and divesting all their shit.
Yeah.
Like
That's
all
why I
we're
want to.
doing.
That's why I want to take it, because that's why I came back. Because I heard about the charging the parents for negligence. The issue is that you would have to demonstrate negligence, because it could be possible.
It's fat and obese.
No, but it could be possible that the kid's fat and obese due to factors that the parents try to control, and yet while trying to make their kids healthy, their kids may not want to listen to them, may get food outside when they go to school, may have some outside force. You have to demonstrate, and having a fat kid is not in of itself demonstration of negligence on the parents.
If you don't pay for the kid to have food, I don't know too many broke kids that are just going to get fat because other people are buying them food.
Corey?
Like, I don't know kids without money that are doing that.
And then lactoid?
Yeah, I'm just curious. Although I think lactose
And
is
Gibbs?
first.
There's a bunch of places you get free
You're
food
such a
from.
gentleman. You can go first, Corey. Thank you.
But so I'm curious. Like, so there those who are opposed, or some of the obviously I'm not really outside of Gibbs and the whooping. People are opposed to Ozempic or having children having access to it with the concerns. How would you feel? Because some of this is stemming from you're not addressing like the root problem, like let's say lifestyle changes, better eating habits. How would you feel about, let's say, gastric bypass or bariatric surgery for like adolescents? Like you're pretty much like permanently altering the physiology, where it's like, they don't need to really address their eating habits. You're physically limiting how much they eat. And so at some level, you can make the argument that you're addressing the root problem, so to speak. Are you more in favor of that?
No.
And so why not?
Because I'm not going to put kids through surgery because their parents refuse to take care of them. That makes no sense.
But what if they ask for it? What if you're like a 16-year-old and this is like what they're requesting?
Yeah, no, I'm not cool with like kids doing elective surgeries just because they feel like it.
Okay. Well, What if it's also doctor recommended as well?
Well, it's only doctor recommended because the kid is being neglected by the parent. Unless there's like a medical reason that they need to have this. Outside of that, like no.
Okay, interesting.
Well, the medical reason is that they're super fat.
I get that,
Yeah.
but like that's just, to me that's just negligence of the parents, and I'm not gonna sit here and treat kids medical through medical
Well, yeah, but
surgeries when we could could just-
neglect already happened though. The problem
So-
already happened. So
Oh,
what
you're
about
talking
now?
about like it's already happened going forward. I mean, you have to do what you have to do in order to get the kids healthy.
Well, yeah,
sure,
so-
but I don't think that's going to treat the overall issue.
Even if I grant you like sure, I can grant
No.
you at some level there's like negligence in whatever some cohort of parents and children. But like if you can't address that, okay, which is understandably more difficult, but maybe more optimal. Like you're almost like saying, well, the kid should now suffer pretty much almost for the rest of their lives if you're like pretty much not giving them access to, let's say, bariatric or gastric bypass surgery. It's like, yeah,
Well-
well, it's negligence, so I'm not going to treat it, so to speak.
Well, the problem is the gastric bypass. You're going to do that. I mean, sure, that might treat the core issue that they're eating too much. But then if they're not being healthy, they're not active, and they're just sitting at home, but they have the gastric bypass. So once again, aesthetically, they're not big, but they're still not having healthy eating habits and they're not having healthy activity habits. Then yeah, that doesn't really address anything. It just makes them look better.
I mean, gastric bypass is going to be different because gastric bypass isn't just like Ozempic where you're going to eat a less amount. If you have gastric bypass, you basically have to go on a ketogenic diet. It's a long time because you'll have
Oh, I
crushing.
mean, yeah, that I don't know. Yeah.
It's a long gastric bypass is a little bit more in that it basically forces you to develop healthy eating habits in the sense that like
Pretty much can't
you have a
overeat.
very, very limited. Yeah, you can overeat physically or you'll vomit, but also you can't have too much sugar for a very long time. So you end up on eating whole grain, limited amounts of sugar at first. And these are things like rice and things like that. So like you're going to change your eating habits in a way that isn't just about intake if you have gastric bypass, but also
That seems like torture to do that to a kid.
is a drastic. I think surgery is. Well, I think being fat is also torturous, and so
Yeah,
because
but
and
you're
type
forced
of
them on a
diabetes
keto-
and heart disease and all
right.
that.
So I think
cancer.
the problem here is that we shouldn't be worried about like I understand the knee jerk reaction of holy shit, why would you give surgery to a child? I think it always needs to be on the table because for some very small percentage of people, that might be the only option that they have to fix the problem or to save this person's life or to get them where they need to be. But it's going to be a very, very, very small portion. I think
Yeah.
the thing that we need to be focused more on is not what tools ought we be taking away, whether it be Ozempic, whether it be surgery, things like that. I think it's less about what tools ought we be taking away and instead what tools ought we be giving and incentivizing.
Yeah.
And that's really where I'm at, is that I don't necessarily disagree that Ozempic is a tool or that even gastric bypass for a minor is a tool, but I think it is a tool that is drastic and there are other tools that should be utilized that are being underutilized. And I brought up genetic testing as just one. The MTHFR gene was just one gene I was talking about. But there are plenty of things that if you get genetic testing and you do a full gambit, there are plenty of things that people have no idea that they're allergic to. And
Hey.
then they find out they're allergic to
Hey
it.
Scott. Hey Scott.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just be a tiny bit toxic here, okay? All right, just a tiny bit.
Mhm.
So you think that a child can consent to gastric bypass surgery?
It's a silly question. I understand you're memeing. I don't think a child can consent, as I said earlier.
Do you think? No, sorry, excuse me. No. Do you think we should be able to do a gastric bypass surgery on a child?
I think that if you are so I'm talking about very extreme cases.
Uh-huh.
So as I've stated multiple times on this program before, my philosophy stems from the parent only doing interventions that are permanent if they are designed to get a child to their natural body state. And if a child is morbidly obese and you have tried everything that you can, I think that gastric bypass surgery at that point is an attempt by doctors and parents to get the child to a natural body state where their body should be healthily. But if you just do it randomly, I don't know that it is an honest attempt at doing that.
Huh. Okay,
If you've exhausted everything and you can't figure out why this child is obese and it's becoming, a serious problem.
The
their
trans
life
question's
might be
coming,
in
Scott.
danger.
Not even that, but I was gonna ask, how could it be their natural body state when aren't you permanently altering their hunger levels?
Yeah, I don't know how it could be, but I'm gonna leave it alone. I would like to actually dig into that a little deeper with you later on.
The
But
toxicity
first,
stops here.
the toxicity stops. Like I said, just a little bit toxic, just a little bit toxic. And then we'll go to our friend Lactoid, and then Gibbs. I have to step away, but I can still hear you guys.
All right, I'm not gonna get into the trans stuff. That's kind of where Prime was
Please,
going.
no need to.
I'm
No
not
need
gonna go
to.
there. Don't worry. So I agree. Surgery and Ozempic and like worst case scenarios. I would only feel comfortable if like we're pretty damn sure this is going to be in the best interest of the child, given the invasive nature,
Right.
especially of surgery, but also of Ozempic, considering the potential ramifications and the side effects.
Yep.
Interestingly,
Very similar, actually, to
Actually,
androgen therapy,
yeah,
HRT, because the biggest symptom
osteoporosis,
is
yeah,
bone density loss.
yeah, bone density
And
loss. So
I don't know about cancer, but
But
we'll see.
maybe the thing is, like, I think there's steps that could be taken beforehand. So we're talking about negligence on the parent and how, like, well, we can't, we can't necessarily go after the parent because maybe the kid's like, involved in the blood, like the zebra cake black market or something, and getting a hold of this shit when they're not supposed to, right? It's possible. It's possible. But I kind of like perceive this to be. Maybe this is a hot take, but I perceive this to be like a similar problem, even with like drugs and alcohol, where like kids might get a hold of it, but if we have a reason to believe your kid has a problem with it, and then like we find out that you are providing this for your children, now we got a major problem. Now we're probably going to step in and like charge you. So I think here's two solutions. You remove junk food from being able to be purchased with food stamps, so in the same category as cigarettes and alcohol. And second of all, if your kid gets fat enough and we find out you're still giving your kid soda, you're in trouble. You start getting tickets. And then there you go, for abuse of a child. And then we're going to ticket you until you stop.
So like I kind of understand, right? Obviously I'm an anarchist, so I'm not in favor of creating new forms of laws against
Protecting
parents,
children, yeah.
But yeah, there's a little bit of an issue here, right? Because it's kind of obvious when I'm watching you guys bob your head that none of you have children, right? So if you actually have children, what you'll notice is that they have growth spurts, right? And so it's super, super natural when you have a kid where one day they're eating, let's say, X amount of calories, and then the very next day they need double the amount of calories. Like for like the next 2 or 3 weeks, they need double the calories that they needed before because they're about to hit a growth spurt. And so when we're talking about children, especially from like toddler age to like right before high school age, like in this area where there's a lot of random growth spurts that occur, there are plenty of times where the problem can get ahead of you before you know it, right? Because what ends up happening is they need a bunch of calories. You're assuming they need a growth spurt, right? They start packing on stuff and you're like, oh, they're gonna shoot up and be tall soon, and they're gonna drop all this weight because it's happened like 6 or 7 times before. And now they're developing really bad eating habits. But like the kid's hungry and you love them and you're just trying to make sure they have everything, and like you're busy and stressed or whatever, and you give them the food, and then before you know it, the growth spurt doesn't actually come, and what you have is an obese child. So like I do kind of understand the concept of like certain things are just obviously unhealthy, like soda and things like that. But I do think that it is a little bit more complicated, and we need to be a little bit careful about the concept of just if you have an obese kid, this means you're neglecting your kid.
Your kid isn't going to get obese in 3 weeks.
Problem
He's
that
not going to
gets-
get obese in 3
Well, hold on,
weeks.
yeah,
though.
we can be careful about this, right? I'm not saying just like,
No, that's not how growth spurts happen.
Right, yeah,
You
yeah.
pack on pounds for a couple months.
Yeah, you cut off the soda though, because
Yeah,
soda has
obese and packing
there's no
on pounds are
nutritional
2 different
value.
things.
There's no nutritional value for soda. But I'm saying like you got a kid who's medically obese, and like the doctor tells the parent, stop giving the kid this shit, and the parent continues to do so. I mean, for fuck's sake, we can't have this kid just like be dying. I think so. I think ticketing them
We're
is
not
good.
arguing at cross purposes, right? I'm just saying that these things can happen in a way that surprisingly fast in a way that you didn't expect it. Like what I'm saying is that like it's not like this long storied tradition of overfeeding this kid junk food for 3 years, that sometimes these things can happen in a couple of months, and then all of a sudden you have an obese kid, and then what you do in that moment certainly defines you as a parent, whether or not you're taking care of your child. But I'm just saying that these things can get away from you, and you can develop these bad eating habits
Okay.
almost without even knowing.
I'm gonna speak from intuition here. It's possible this person that you're describing exists. I'm not denying that. I would
It's
guess
super common.
though, yeah, I'm sure it's super common, but I would guess that a lot of this has to do with changing general eating habits, because I'm sure this shit happened back in the 70s and 60s, and like you astutely pointed out, we didn't have a bunch of fat kids back then. So obviously the problem is, I think most of the time the problem is the parents just probably just don't give a fuck, or they're ignorant as to what they're doing. That's probably like the two scenarios.
The number one change.
They're bringing in soda. They're bringing in like fucking
Yeah.
like moon
I
pies
agree.
and McDonald's, and they're eating this every day because that's what feels good to them. They're acting on their impulse, and the kids are picking up those diet as well.
I agree.
It's kind of a
the
fucked
number
up thing.
the number one thing you can do, just public service announcement very quickly.
Eat dinner with
if you
your
want
kids.
to if you want to stop, eat dinner with your kids. Eat dinner with your kids, but not just eat dinner with them, eat at the dinner table. It is the number one intervention that you can do to stop not only overeating and obesity, but also anorexia and bulimia. If you want to stop your children from having eating disorders, the best thing you can do is make sure that the family sits down at the dinner table and that
Yep.
everybody eats together, and that you talk about your day, you talk about things that are going on, and that you eat together, and that you watch each other eat, and that you eat the same meal, and have intentionality in what it is that you're eating. It also, you end up eating healthier when you do that too, more often than not.
Let's go with Gibbs and then Ali.
Yeah, I don't know. I got to really push back on a lot of this. I really do. I'm sitting here and hearing this, and the only thing that keeps coming to mind is this participation mentality that we have, like participation trophy mentality that we have.
Does
And
not
I know
apply here.
it does apply. And I've let you talk, and so I've heard your bullshit for the last hour. So listen here, we're gonna learn you real good. All right, here's the secret. Everybody nowadays has to feel special. Everybody has to feel special. You tell somebody they're fat, oh, you hurt their feelings. Nobody wants to be the bad guy. Oh, it's bad. Back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, like y'all were talking about, guess what? They didn't give a shit if they hurt your feelings. You're like, hey, fat ass, and they shamed you. And guess what you did? You went and you got in the gym, and you got in shape, and that's what worked. Just like, look at Arnold. He'd be over here. People were talking smack about, like, the Special Olympics.
Arnold's
He
on
shamed those
steroids,
people.
or was on
Well,
steroids.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. He goes, oh, there's lots of people. My point was he's
Well,
shaming
good.
people to go get in shape. Yeah, and guess what? He's not a
also
fat
had
ass.
massive heart surgery.
He's he's got other issues. The problem here is obesity, and he
Fucking
solved
Corey
obesity.
Campbell knows
He
fucking
sol-
Arnold's medical
He
records.
solved obesity though with it.
Absolutely.
But like in general though, you can look at there's other examples of people like David Goggins, all sorts of people that go in there, you get yelled at, you get shamed, and then you go and you get fucking yoked. Like, I mean, it's real simple. I don't know why people are acting like, oh, it's
All
the
right,
calories.
can you
It's
provide
so.
me?
What the
can you
fuck
provide-
does
can you-
David Goggins fucking who's gonna carry the boats
I'm
have
saying-
to do with fucking
I'm telling
childhood
you.
obesity?
I'm telling you,
Ozempic,
because-
That's the
It's like
solution,
proper
Scott.
standards.
It's David
It is-
Goggins. He's the
It's just-
solution to the
it's
kids
simple.
getting
It's
fat.
like, I'm gonna give you an example. Doobie
Just
mentioned
need to
earlier.
clone them
he
in
said,
every
oh,
household.
He said, "Oh, I feel bad. I had to go and I had worked out all one day and I was out for the next week." And I got one response to that, Doobie, and I'm sorry, you might be a nice person, but that's pussy baby back bullshit. Like, guess what happened in 2 days? Nobody likes day 1 and 2 days. Nobody. Guess what happens? Day 2 comes and you better get your ass out there or they cut you from the team. So you get out there and you feel like dog shit and you go through another hard workout. And by the end of 2 days, you're going, wow, I'm doing pretty good. And then after that, everything's a breeze because you put yourself through something hard and you succeeded. Oh, so this idea that, our lives are just so much harder now.
You're just making
you're
up shit.
400 pounds. I'm not making up shit. I'm sorry that I played sports
Yes,
all
you
my
are.
life and played like at a high level.
All your
you know.
life,
this
like
is-
so.
this
Right
is
now,
the-
right
well,
now,
not
you're.
now.
Okay, but
Not
Gibbs,
now.
all your
Not
life,
now.
so
All
currently,
my life,
you
recently.
Yesterday
played
you were
sports
playing
your entire
sports.
life.
Yeah,
so you built up
yeah.
the tolerance and the muscle that you needed to power through
Yeah.
that shit. Most people don't have
It's
that.
called mental fortitude.
Okay, hold
Maybe
on.
we need to
No, it's not
develop
mental
that.
fortitude.
It
It's,
is
you've been in
that.
sports your entire life, so you've built up some muscle and some tolerance to the muscle aches and to the pain that comes along with it. When I'm saying that I was in pain for the next
It's
week,
tolerance is
it's
the
not.
word.
It's not just that I was sore. I'd been sore before. My knees were fucking burning. I could literally.
Good,
could not
that's a
move my
good
legs.
feeling.
No, it's not. It's not a good feeling.
Yeah.
There was. Hold on. This indicates that there's some damage being done because I'm running around weighing 400 something pounds. Right. That is not healthy for my fucking knees. Right. So like. this idea that you just power through it and then you're
Well,
good.
you should
no,
run
that's,
swimming,
That's
Doobie,
fucking
right?
ridiculous.
We can make them
Hey,
swim.
hold on,
Tommy.
wait,
You
Lactoid,
get braces?
Lactoid, that is
You
what I
tape
ended up
up?
doing. Hold on, Lactoid, that is what I ended up doing, okay? Because I realized, hey, I can't just work out like everybody else because my body is not like everybody else's right now. I need to do other shit. Right, so this idea you just like power through it and you're good is fucking ridiculous, right?
No,
No,
it's
no,
not.
no,
You
no.
can
But to
tape
Gibbs'
up.
point,
It really
what if we
is.
made all the kids swim? Then their knees are fine.
Yeah, that'd be
Well,
fine.
also
That'd be
just
something we
telling
could do.
people to do these things is what we've always done. We've always told people to just not be fat. We've
But I
always
do-
told them to work out and do better, but that's not actually happening. So like we have to
Well,
actually
it's not
come up
happening
with
now because the
restrictions that are
participation
actually
should be
going to make this more likely.
I do think there is one
Like,
salient point
Gen
that
X,
Admiral
Gen
Gibbs
X,
has
Gen
been
X is
saying,
like Ibram Kendi,
and
like,
it is
critical
that
race
if
theorists.
every
Like-
kid had their own personal David
They did
Goggins,
everything about
they
participation.
would.
We're not
actually
hiring
work
a
out
David
pretty well.
Goggins for every kid. We can't afford that.
Exactly.
One David Goggins for a group of like 50 kids, and if every time he comes out there with some calipers, you're wait, time to hit the track, boy. Let's
He
go.
might not be. He may like if public schools hired a personal trainer.
We do that. It's called a gym teacher.
I know,
Yeah.
but it's
Gym
not.
teachers are awful.
It's
Well, gym
not.
teachers are like really, in my experience, not
Low
the
bar.
Okay, I'm
best.
sorry. You've had a bad experience with like your gym
Hold on,
teacher, but
but
gym
they-
teachers are basically personal trainers for the whole school, right?
But they don't really
I
maintain
don't know
that
about
for the. They don't really maintain that for the rest of the
I mean,
school
they have
year.
more education than most personal trainers, to be fair.
Yeah, and they're not as highly specific
They're
as
stuck
what
in the
a personal
Matrix.
trainer should be. They don't give like, here's your daily workouts for the rest of the week. Here you go, student, and here for you, student, and I'm gonna
Or
personalize
tackle
it
diet
for
which is the
everybody.
more
Yeah,
important
but
part.
okay, but look at like the fat kid sports. Like, all right, this is gonna sound weird. Everybody knew if you were on the tennis team, you were probably some little fatty, right? Or if you were in band, you're probably gonna be a little fatty. But if guess what,
The
you went over there.
tennis kids?
Yeah, the tennis kids were little fatties. Guess what? But you know what? The fatties, all the fucking
The
football
kids that
players,
run back and forth
the
on the
basketball
court playing
players,
tennis?
yeah, they were fatties. I don't know.
I feel like
Yeah,
the
the
football
cross
players are the
countries,
fattest.
the
Well,
cross
Yeah.
country kids. I mean,
The
maybe some
football
of the
players
linemen.
were the big dudes.
I mean, maybe y'all were a scrub
I mean,
school.
hold on,
I was
no,
going to
when I joined the football team in high school, the first thing that the coach fucking told me is eat twice as much as you're eating now. I was already really
Yeah,
fucking
the
fat.
centers in my school were like 300 pounds.
Well, you know, our
Like, they were
centers were 300 pounds, but they were
Yeah, but they were
Hold
built
on,
like
Gibby-
tanks, though. They weren't
Gibby,
just
Yeah,
fat.
they were tanks. It wasn't fat. They
I
were
want to hear from
multiple
Jimmy.
300
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Like,
No, I would just respond to that. I think it's
Yeah, but even
Wait,
but just like sumo wrestlers, average age of expectancy is like 57. Just because you're a tank doesn't mean it's good for you.
it's not
but
good.
you don't
I'm
see
just
fat.
saying,
You
like,
don't
they
see
were
fat
more
That's the
swimmers.
price.
Like, I mean, there are
Yeah,
fat
that's
kids.
what they
Tell me there
were.
aren't fat kid sports though. Like you think that's a meme, but it's not. Like you
No, I
didn't
don't think
see
it's a
fat
meme. I just don't
swimmers.
think the ones that you were pointing to are.
But you didn't see fat
sports.
tennis players. You don't see fat tennis.
Oh, we had a lot of
players
hefty
either.
tennis
A lot of
kids. We had
cardio.
400
It's like
pounds
saying
running
fat
this.
soccer kids.
They were just walking around hitting a little ball dainty like.
Yeah,
wait,
you
wait,
barely
wait,
see
wait,
the
wait, wait,
soccer
wait.
kids.
So to to your point, listen, I agree that shame works, but I don't think that we should be shaming the kids.
Absolutely.
So there was this lady on TikTok who was making dinner for her kids every night.
I've
right?
seen that video.
And every night she would make like fucking the most processed, disgusting, like horrible food for her
donuts and
kids.
shit.
She mushed Twinkies
Yeah.
in with like powdered donuts. Yeah, disgusting.
exactly. And so the internet fucking flamed her, and some of them gave recommendations as what she should eat. And after a few I think days or weeks of getting absolutely torched online and getting shamed, she
What's
ended
the
up
app?
changing. I honestly don't know. I didn't really look that deep into it. But after
She
a
was
few
real
weeks of
fat
getting
too, though.
changed- Yeah, she was also fat. But then what did she do? She ended up changing the diet because she was getting made fun of online so much. She didn't want to do this, but that's what she thought. She thought that was the best way to feed her kids because she was. I think they were a broke-ish family, right? And so information, and then she changes the diet for the kids. Because unfortunately, you're not going to be able to hold kids accountable for once again the actions of their parents. And like Scott, to your point, when you were saying that parents don't have enough time to cook for their kids and you call it that cope, well, I mean, it's cope that you don't see your kid getting obese. Your kid getting a little chunky is one thing. Your kid getting a little fat is one thing. Your kid getting obese is a complete other
That's not
thing.
what it
You're not
said.
gonna well,
That's
you
not
said
what it
that. You said you could easily. You said that if you have kids that have growth spurts, you don't know how long or when that growth spurt is going to kick in, so you feed them more than because they need more calories, and that could
Right.
quickly become obesity. I mean, how long do you think it takes for a kid to get obese? I'm talking about round little,
What I
little
said
people,
what
you
I
know?
said is that the problem can get away from you quicker than most people here think because they're not parents.
Yeah, how
and
long?
They're not thinking about what it's like. You can
Yeah.
have a growth spurt situation where your kid is overeating massively for a few months. and then the growth spurt never comes, and now you've ingrained for a few months unhealthy eating habits, and they've packed on the pounds. I said it's in that moment where then we can start where we notice the problem, right? Is where you can start to take action, and where a parent should take action. What I'm saying is that it can be very difficult for a lot of people, especially if they don't know the appropriate ways to deal with these problems, etc. Because it's not like it's this thing. Sometimes I don't want to say obesity comes out of nowhere, because obesity doesn't come out of nowhere. But your child being overweight and already having bad habits absolutely can come out of nowhere.
It's easy to
Now,
see and
granted-
manage. Relatively, it's
Right.
easy to see and manage.
I
You're the
think
one
we-
feeding them. You're the one who's looking after them. You're the one who manages the weight. You're supposed to take them to their checkups, whatever it is.
Right, and then once
your
you
little
have an
board
obese
that the
kid,
t-shirts don't fit.
I'm just saying what I was pushing back on is the concept that if a child is obese, that this means almost certainly that there's like a really neglectful parent. And what I'm saying is it's like a long period of obesity. I absolutely agree there. But if a child just becomes fat, it's like, okay, now we have a problem and we have to resolve this. And sometimes it can take a while to figure out what the problem actually is, because in some situations it could be a genetic issue. In some situations it could be some type of sickness or something.
I'm skeptical of the genetic
cases,
shit.
You can be skeptical all you want, but it certainly plays a role. Genetics and epigenetics absolutely play a role in weight loss. And yes, you can push through many of those things, but they're an incentive amongst.
Well, I mean, we
One
did
of the-
push
I know
through. We
girls
pushed
take
through.
issue-
We pushed
I
through
know-
it for all of human history, except for the past 50 years. So
There was one girl in
Yeah,
high
well,
school.
yeah,
No matter
yes,
what
I-
age,
well,
was going
I-
to be
that's
around.
one of the reasons.
That's an exception.
Hold on, that's one of the reasons.
One
That's one of the
person.
reasons why I brought up. That's one of the reasons why I brought up the MTHFR gene, right? Is because it's not
Well,
because
that's
I believe that that's like a big part of obesity in America. I don't, right? But this is just one example of something that wasn't a problem 50 or 100 years ago, because we didn't have a bunch of folic acid in our diet. It didn't really exist. We had methylfolates and we had other forms of folates that were naturally occurring. We weren't spraying our food with folic acid. We didn't have all of our vitamins have folic acid added. We didn't add folic acid to cereal. This is a thing that many people can't process, right? That causes weakness, muscle soreness, fatigue, paresthesia, pins and needles, and many things that could contribute to weight gain. And it's something that simply didn't exist 50 years ago because it wasn't in our diet. That's just one example. And what I'm saying is that like the biggest problem with this problem is treating it as if there is ever going to be a one size fits all solution. It is going to be about diet is going to be a problem. Weight, what type of food we're eating, what kind of calories we're eating, working out, whether or not we're sitting down and eating, like all of the solutions that people are giving, I kind of agree with them that they're important. But when you present them as if this is the solution, you're missing that like this has to be a holistic approach on top of finding out what the root problems are, because everyone's obesity is going to be caused by a multitude of factors, but there's going to be primary factors. Is it trauma and overeating? Like Doobie said, there are 14-year-olds out there where parents are not trying to overfeed their kids, but for whatever reason, they have trauma that they don't really understand. And that kid is sneaking out at 2:00 in the morning when everyone is asleep and eating food in the fucking pantry, right? Like there are just so many different reasons why people can develop eating disorders or have unhealthy habits. And you're going to have to take a holistic and individual approach to all of these, whilst also giving more options to everybody in society and more education.
I think that there is almost of a catch-all solution to this, and I think if you ever watch Willy Wonka, you'd understand what I'm talking about. And it's one thing that it's really you're gonna be really hard to solve. Is just like food just tastes really good. It's gonna be hard for you to find somebody that just eats for eating's sake and not because it also tastes good. And so
other
so you're saying we suck them up into these tubes that go up into the.
No. I'm saying that there was this invention of gum that you could eat and you would taste a whole meal.
We just got to invent that.
And so, like, imagine, technology, I feel like solves a lot of problems.
Everlasting Gobstopper is going to solve childhood obesity.
They have
We
that
got-
with
we got
the
invented,
air
man.
water bottles where you
No,
can
no.
smell. We can smell the thing and then taste the water.
I'm just saying, instead of imagine where somebody invents a technology where you eat a gum and it's like low calorie gum,
Hell yeah.
maybe 50 calories at the most.
They're trying that with water
My
right
man
now. They have
spitting.
the water bottle
Well,
where it's the
protein
lid is scented, and the idea is that you smell, and the scent that you smell, you
Right,
when you
right,
drink the water,
exactly.
it doesn't work.
Right,
Protein
because the
is all
technology is not there yet.
What-
Obviously, it's not going to work. What we have is not going
We
to.
just got to invent the 0-calorie burger. Perfect.
No, I
What's a protein
Impossible
shake gonna fill you
burgers.
up, though,
No, but
because
hold
it's
on.
That
just
burger
liquid
exists, it's just
and
made of plastic.
protein
Hold
is
on,
what
I-
actually makes you gain a whole lot of weight.
Hold
I
on, Tom. I can't hear you.
Protein shakes currently do this. Protein shakes currently do make you feel fuller when you drink them. They're not
Right,
like
right. But I'm
there's
talking
not a whole
about
lot of calories in
the
them to where it
taste.
actually makes you gain weight.
we have to
tastes pretty
develop
good.
better
It-
taste.
Just drink.
Protein
I
tastes
understand,
delicious.
but they can just drink. Well, protein shakes can taste good too. They taste
they
like
do.
fucking vanilla or
No, I'm
chocolate
saying,
shakes
but-
or
They
whatever.
taste like
But once
chalk.
you-
Actually has.
but
No,
once
you're
you
drinking the
develop-
wrong one, Lactoid.
Drink them.
No, Tom.
good.
Tom, I agree with you, Tom.
You feel full.
But once we develop a protein shake that could taste like McDonald's fries, a protein shake that could, and it actually tastes good, then I think you would see. Well, I don't need it because this is my problem.
It's brilliant. Soylent
This is-
Green, even better.
This is absolutely my problem. My
And
problem.
solve the population problem.
What I'm saying, listen,
idea
I have a
to
problem
do
of. I think it could be tied to my ADHD, but I eat because I'm bored. A lot of times I have nothing else to do. I'm just watching. Let me also grab a bite to eat because I like to watch I eat what I watch, and because food just tastes good. I like eating because it just feels good.
Also, with ADHD, you have a lack of dopamine hitting your receptors.
Yeah, that is
Food
true.
replace that a lot of times. That actually
Right, so
but I
that
do wanna
that
correct
ties in with my
Lactoid
boredom.
genetic. Why don't you think that obesity would be genetic?
Who said that?
Lactoid.
Yeah, because I find it to be, my understanding of natural selection would be like, okay, so for all of human history, we were able to get away with like a negligible obesity rate with this genetic like predisposition. But now all of a sudden, like, you can't help it. You're just genetically prone to be fat. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
Like,
I
like,
mean,
there's no genetic
even,
code
like,
that makes you like
diabetes,
absorb
like-
calories from the air. You can only get calories from
Hold on,
eating.
hold on. The
No,
amount
hold
of
on, that's not
bullshit that you're saying right now, Lactoid. No,
body's
what I
ability
said.
to
for
process
two things. Because this is
I
against
get
what
it,
I
the
said, right?
folic acid, the folic acid. But there's a lot of people who are saying like, I can't help it. I can't help it.
No, don't interrupt me because I'm about to cook your fucking ass. All right, shut the fuck up and listen. Take your fucking.
And then
spanking
you would
like a
eat
good
me,
little boy.
and it would be fatting.
Okay,
Fattening.
listen to me. No, number one. The reason that many people were not fat throughout all of human history is because for most of human history, we didn't even have fucking farming. and even when we did have farming, we didn't have access to grocery stores and food. There are plenty of things that evolutionarily we are evolved to have.
Access to
Such
food
as
is
a
the
love
problem.
for
I agree with
sugar,
you.
Such as this love for sugar. Okay, well then you're disagreeing with yourself. Because
I'm
you're
not
saying-
disagreeing with myself. I'm saying,
your
I'm saying,
evidence- yes, you
no,
are.
I'm
Yes,
not
you are.
disagreeing. You
Evidence,
missed
look.
it. I know you
Your
ran
evidence-
back
your
because you
evidence-
had to get your
your
voice
evidence-
in. I know you like to do this, but just hear
Hold on,
what I
I
said
wanna know
was,
because you're
what I
bullshitting.
said
I'm
was,
trying to
what
get
I
in here
said
so I
was.
could actually say something, and it's going right back to the two.
I'm
of you
answering,
talking about
Tom.
motherfucking
I just want to
shit.
clarify because my answer was obviously lost on Scott, right? I meet a lot of people, and sometimes people are
I
bigger.
found the contradiction.
I found people that tend to be, there's people in America, surprise, they tend to be bigger. And what they'll say is, more often than not, well, it's my genetics. I can't really help it, right? It's just, it's a genetic problem, blah, blah, blah.
Irrelevant to what
And
I
it's
said.
a way, I'm not, surprise, it was a question to me from Tom, so it's not what you said. It's about
Yes,
what
but
I
yeah,
said.
but it's
About
actually
your
a
response
fact.
to what I
So,
said.
but my response is
You're
that you
bullshitting.
have all these
You're
fat people who are
ignoring
saying it's a
possible
genetic issue.
All right.
When my point
No, no,
is
no.
that like this is a
you're moving
way.
the goalpost.
Okay, hold
This
on,
is a
guys.
way.
Okay, well,
This is a
sorry,
way.
sorry.
Wait, hold on. You can-
We're gonna let Lactoid.
Oh, sorry.
We're gonna let Lactoid finish. We're gonna let Lactoid finish. We're gonna let Tom respond. Tom, I see.
This is
And then
crazy.
Scott, you can go. But then after that, and Gibbs, I'll give you the final word. But we do have to move on to our second topic.
All right. So,
Go ahead,
what I'm saying is that often I see this as a way to dodge responsibility. It's not my fault that I'm obese. It's my genetic code that's at fault for me being obese. When the reality is that for centuries and centuries, even after agriculture was developed, people, even if these genes existed, people were able to not be obese and yet still have these, this genetic code. The reality is look, if you are inputting more calories than you are exporting through whatever activities you're doing, you are going to gain weight. So it's ultimately your responsibility. It's ultimately your fault. And this idea of, well, it's just my genetics is not it doesn't register with me as a valid excuse.
Okay, so
Okay,
yes,
go
you
ahead,
just
Tom.
say it's just my genetics. That's obviously a really dumb thing to say. But genetics obviously play a big part in your ability to gain weight or lose weight. So if two people are both exercising and eating the same food, one person might actually gain a lot of weight and the other person might actually lose weight because your metabolism, your ability to get diabetes, like there's tons of things that actually are genetic and come through your family history. And so we can't just say, oh, like what fucking Admiral Gibbs keeps doing, where he's like, I did it, so everybody can do it. Like two people doing the same exact thing does not mean that they're going to have the same exact outcome. And so one might actually be harder for the other person. That doesn't mean it's a good excuse. It doesn't mean that they can just say, oh, blanket, I have, problems, so now I just don't have to try anymore. We still want to tell them to push harder, but it is true that they just have to do a lot more to get to the same outcome as other people, and that they are going to have a lot more trouble. We expect more of those people only because of some sort of genetic problem.
Yeah, but that's not. But I hear you on that. Yeah, they're gonna have to do shit. But like, I don't know. My experience has been, oh, I can't help it. I'm genetically like this.
Yeah,
I
it's just there's a fat
it's
gene.
just who
There's
I
a
am.
fat
I
gene.
have the fat gene, and it's like for this kind of goes back like in some like basic psychological research of like external locus of control versus internal locus of control. Even if it was like there was some like gene that made it so you would gain weight, and you're saying, yeah, there's genes that make it more difficult to lose weight. It's actually better for them if we convince them that it's their responsibility to lose weight, because that makes it more likely
So
that they will
deny
lose weight.
facts because it makes you feel better about it.
No. It
Deny
makes them more likely to
not
lose
reality.
weight statistically.
Pretend that it's not real, that it actually is genetic, so that we can come to better conclusions in the end.
So Lacto, you're okay with lying to
that's fine.
people as long as it.
No.
Lacto, you're okay with lying to people as long as
No,
it
I'm
makes
gonna
them
respond.
feel better?
No, I'm not.
That's what
I'm
I'm
not saying lying to them. I'm telling them
You know.
it's actually.
Yo, you said
it's a
lie.
form of.
You are saying
I
lie.
never said lied. I said it's actually like a form of heightened truth. Because I'm
what
gonna
you're
tell somebody.
Form of
By the way,
heightened
if you know this, by the way,
By Donald Trump. Hyperbolic
simply
truth.
no. Hear me out. Simply believing that you can lose the weight makes it more likely that you lose the weight, and you tell somebody that is informing
That's not
somebody
what you
about
said.
it.
That's the biggest.
So let me.
Okay, let's
Let me
go
respond.
to
As opposed to you guys are like, oh, it's the genetics, blah blah. It's so hard.
Let's go
You're
to.
such a hypocrite.
Hey,
Nobody
hey
can
guys,
write
we gotta go to Scott.
So-
then
so-
we're gonna go to Gibbs. We gotta move on afterwards.
Yeah, so a dream
Right,
brought
so-
up.
So hold on. No, Admiral. I'm going to respond real quick, and then absolutely yes. So you have completely shifted the goalpost to something entirely different, Lactoid. Now you are talking about people that use genetics as an excuse to not work hard and to blame it on some vague, unknowable thing, which is not at all what I was talking about and not at all what you were disagreeing with. You were scoffing at the idea of genetics potentially playing a major role in individuals' weight gain journey. And then you backed this up again by saying that, oh, everything was fine for this super long amount of time. There were no issues because we survive now. And then when I attempted to start telling
because
you
we
why
didn't know
what
about
your answer is
genetics.
problematic, you just go, oh, I'm on folic acid. And you started screaming over me because I was explaining why you're so fucking wrong. So yes, genetics are autoimmune diseases exist. Food allergens exist. Issues processing certain chemicals and peptides and things like that exist. And what I am saying, and what I've been saying from the beginning, is that if we want to have a better handle on obesity, I think it is high time that we start doing genetic testing that's not very difficult when we find things that lead to health issues, because it is a very cheap and efficient way to figure out someone's issues at a young age, where we can change their diet because potentially they need certain vitamins, certain peptides, or they need to avoid certain food groups in order to be healthy. And in order to be healthy, that means to have the energy to work out and do certain things. Yes, I totally understand that fatties like to blame genetics without actually doing anything about it. Everyone here gets that. We've all heard that bullshit. What I am talking about is that if you are going to try and look at an individual and diagnose a problem before you start pumping fucking drugs, maybe learn to see if there's an issue from a food allergen or an autoimmune disease or something else that they need to take out of their diet as a means of helping them, along with coaching, exercising, getting rid of soda.
Look,
and things like
I was the one who proposed altering the diet before you start pumping them up with drugs, right? Pulling soda, turning soda into like a controlled substance in the same way we do alcohol and tobacco.
Yeah, you don't own changing diet
kids
to
probably
not be fat.
kids,
All right,
kids
that's not-
probably
you're not
kids
convinced
kids
that
probably
weight loss is a genetic issue.
kids probably even shouldn't get a hold of soda. First of all, but you know, I'm going to stick by my statement. You know, I think that not only is genetics used by fat people as an excuse. I'm skeptical.
That's not your statement.
I'm
Don't say
skeptical.
you're
I'm
sticking by it.
skeptical. I'm
Oh, the fact
skeptical.
that you said it's not part of
I'm-
the issue.
I don't think it's a major part of the issue, no, because obviously we've had this genetic issue.
New goalpost shift.
We've had this genetic issue for a very long time, and we didn't have fat people. So
So
clearly,
let me know when you can make an argument honestly instead of all of these fallacious bullshit.
you can say this, okay? But my observation is we've had these genetic codes forever, right? And despite this, for the vast majority of human history, basically since, except for the past 50 years, we were able to get along relatively fine with a relatively low obesity rate. We're talking about like a major issue. I think the major issue is going to be lifestyle. I think the major issue is going to be sugar and carb intake. It's going to be high fructose corn syrup. It's going to be a change of diet and much less active lifestyle that's experienced by people in the West. You experience this across the
So
board.
you're just ignoring all the
you
shit that I
experience
said.
you
Got it.
see
Shut
this.
the fuck
You
up with
see
your
this.
Gish Gallop.
I'm the Gish Galloper. Shut the fuck up, Scott. So you see this across the board among Western countries.
Well, then
You
deal
talk
with my
more. You talk more than me. This whole panel.
It's
You
not
talk
how
more than
much I
everybody
talk.
else
Every time I
combined
say
on
it's
every
fucking
fucking
insightful.
panel.
You're
Shut the
saying
fuck
bullshit.
up. No, you don't. Shut the fuck up. Like you talk more than everyone else at every panel, and you still yet
It's not-
somehow
that's
have
not what a
like
Gish
the
Gallop
fucking
is.
like. This ego of like, well, I deserve to talk and none of you deserve to talk because I'm Scott. I'm from Fabian Liberty.
Yeah,
Shut the
let's
fuck
go
up for a
to the
second.
argument.
Shut the fuck up.
Let's
Yeah,
go
I'm
to-
literally in the middle of trying to explain myself.
Okay. So, Lactoid, I'm gonna let you explain yourself. Then we're gonna go to Gibbs, and we gotta move on.
Yeah. So the question was whether or not it's a major impact. I don't think it's a major impact. I think
No.
that
that's a new bull- that's a
I
new
think.
bullshit.
Tom, did you say that genetics was a major impact or any impact whatsoever?
You said you don't believe that that's actually part of the problem. That's what you said. You said you're not convinced that that's actually part of the problem. Genetics. The genetics are not part of the problem. That's what I was challenging.
0%.
Obviously, a part of the problem.
Did you misstate that, Lactoid? Maybe you
I don't know if that's actually what I said. If what I said
You were
was
saying I'm not
it's
convinced. I'm skeptical about it. That's what the word.
Yeah, and I am skeptical about it. I don't think it's a major part of the problem. If I said it's literally zero, there's nothing genetic about it, no, that'd be wrong. So if I said that, but I mean, is that really the good faith interpretation of what I'm getting at here? Which is that for the vast majority of human history, we were able to get along just fine. And then the advent of all this shit that started coming up in the past 50 years, we started seeing obesity rates in the countries that have access to this shit, and we don't see obesity rates in the countries that don't have access to this shit.
Either. We didn't
Okay.
have computers back then. We didn't have
Yeah.
desk jobs.
Yeah,
didn't
sure.
have
We
money.
gotta.
That's
we
my
gotta move
point.
on.
Yeah.
We gotta move on.
Not genetics.
We hear you.
That's
Gibbs,
folic
go
acid,
ahead.
By the way.
I'll
So,
give you a final word on this.
All right, so outside of something like
exists.
a thyroid issue, like I'm also not buying this genetic bullshit. Like, let me give you a couple reasons why. One,
Why would you accept thyroids? Fuck them too, right?
Well, no, thyroid's
That's
like
a
it's
genetic
literally.
issue.
Well, hold on. Like I'm not saying there aren't some wholesale, very small percentage where it's just like it causes your body to do some crazy shit, and it's just like whatever. All right. I'm saying for the 99 percentile of the rest of us that have normal bodies, right? I have a slow metabolism, right, as well.
Believe in the
Yeah. It gives the exception there. It's a metabolism problem.
No, it's not. It's not an
All
excuse.
right.
Hold on, it's not an excuse, right? I have slow metabolism. I'm big now. If I went in there, put in the work, like guess what? Even with my old beat up body, I could probably get back to a six pack if I went and dived hard into it, right? So here's the thing. Dream brought up a good point. He said food tastes good, right? And then y'all brought up sneaking into the kitchen at 2 a.m. because they's depressed and they want to get their dopamine fixed. Well, you know what? When I was growing up, that didn't happen. You know why? Because if I had snuck into the kitchen after the kitchen was closed and my parents caught me one time, ass whooping. It's pretty simple. You get off the couch, you put in the work, and you're going to get in there and you're going to get skinny or you're going to lose the weight you need to lose. So, like, like, don't be sitting here and hitting me with all this bullshit about the genetics. You're just not putting in the work. It's a lack of accountability due to the participation trophy mentality, and that's the bottom line.
I never knew that a kitchen
Just don't get caught.
I never knew that a kitchen in a household could be closed.
Oh, see,
I've never heard
trouble.
that. Like,
Yeah,
Like,
after
oh,
what?
Food
What?
orders in the house.
This
But
guy
after
was in
8:30,
special ed. This guy
after-
was in special ed only because he was obese. They literally had to put a lock and chain around his fridge at home.
I mean, sure, I imagine that's the thing, but I'm just saying, just commenting on that. That turn of phrase is interesting.
Yeah,
the
kitchen
was
closed. That's what they call
Prime.
it.
Prime. You didn't have,
Including-
you didn't have foods that your parents didn't allow you to eat because they were there. That was their foods, and so you weren't allowed to have them.
No,
Really? Oh, that was a common thing I heard. a lot
Yeah,
of
after
households.
after
Especially
dinner,
in my
the kitchen was
black
closed. That's what they call
Yeah,
it.
especially with black kids. Like, yeah, their
Yeah,
parents had
that's-
specific foods that they weren't allowed to have. It was their foods.
That never happened in
Hold on,
my
by
home.
their foods, you
That
mean
was a lot
like?
of white people too. Like,
Hold on. I don't understand what you guys mean by this.
so like, let's just say, like, my mom bought a pack of Oreos. Those were her Oreos. I wasn't allowed to have the Oreos.
What? That's
I mean,
crazy.
Cereal.
Oh,
Everything-
wait. That wasn't like that with mine, but I'm not gonna lie. I've seen that in a lot of white and black households.
Yeah,
I'm an Arab, so we can do
It's
whatever
like-
you
My
Okay.
want.
mom did that.
if you're saying that, like,
like soda. I wasn't allowed
Yeah.
to drink
That's
soda.
not what I was talking about, though. Mine was like after dinner, there was no more eating in the kitchen. You better eat your dinner, and then you're
Hold on.
done. But
Just
after that, there's no more eating.
One
You don't
thing,
go in
though-
there, no soda, nothing. You get water. That's
One
it.
thing though, there are people just saying that no matter what they do, they are just like kind of big. Like, and this may be anecdotal, but I knew a few girls that were like they were cheerleaders that were doing the workout thing, but they were just round. They just couldn't get the skinny. Right? They were just built round. I don't know. But there
Well,
are
you guys
people who are just
so,
like,
about
anyway,
that.
no,
You made Prime Guy sensitive
I-
about his weight to where he turned his camera off now.
I'm just saying,
God.
you can say Pacific Islanders exist, okay, Ollie?
Okay. Oh boy.
What kind of Arab are you, Ali?
Hold on. What kind of? Okay.
What
I'll
kind
let
of
you-
Arab are you, Ali?
Lebanese.
Oh man. Okay.
Okay. Right. And all right. So to be clear, so the thing you're talking about, I think there were cases where like, oh, my mother liked like Cheerios or something, right? She bought Cheerios for herself, but if I really wanted Cheerios, she would buy Cheerios for me. But she's like, didn't want like maybe the kids to eat all through everything, right? Like, okay, this stockpile is for me, but
Yeah.
if you want also this food, you can have this food. But there was no food type of food that I was
You were
banned
privileged.
from eating. Just
You're
to be clear.
privileged, Prime.
Yeah.
Live a life of privilege. That's nice. I'm happy for you.
So also
Okay, so we're
kids
gonna-
who are shamed for what they
gonna-
eat have the highest rates of eating disorders.
Okay,
Shame the
all right,
parents,
we got-
not the kids.
We gotta move past this. I'm sorry, we're already super late to go to that. But I'm glad you guys had like a spirited discussion on this. You took to it really well. So thank you all.
There's a lot of people of different
Oh.
sizes here, so that's why.
Fuck me. God damn it. All right. Corey's gonna make fun of me.
There's a donation coming from 4 hours ago.
Okay. Thank you, Lawson Harrison. Shut up, everyone. Thank you, Lawson Harrison, for gifting, for using super chat, saying, "I opened a gym. It's located on a roof. The equipment are bundles of shingles, and all you have to do is move them from a pile to me, and it's free." Okay. All right. That's a good one, Lawson. I hope you're around to hear me read that. It was at 9:40 p.m. Okay. 40 minutes ago. And then Sean, 4 minutes later, became a member. Hey, thank you for being a member and gifted membership to someone. I don't even know how that works. Who do you gift it to? I can't even, it doesn't tell me. But anyway, thank you, Sean, for becoming a YouTube member. That's really, really kind. And I really hope you're here to hear any of this. Oh boy. Moving on. Take that smug smile on your face, Corey.
I'm not smug about much, but let me have my moment.
Okay. All right. All right. So thank you all. And we're gonna go to our second question. Question 2. In Massachusetts, Brockton High School has featured was featured as an exemplary school that, despite its low-income student body, managed to become one of the highest performing schools in America. They accomplished this through an innovative integrated learning system and were looked at as a model for schools globally. However, these days, attendance have decreased by 12% as parents avoid sending their children there due to reportedly outrageous violence. Some say that at least part of the problem is a law that prohibits the schools from suspending disruptive students. Others say the school is just an unfortunate victim of COVID lockdowns. What do you think should be done at schools facing similar troubles? Should we discipline children more harshly? Should we remove them altogether? Or is the problem deeper than that? Yeah. So this school, it's really sad the way they were talking about this. It's really unfortunate. That it seems like the school like did the thing that so many of us have been asking. You know, schools like take accountability for themselves, use the resources they've already been given, rather than like asking for a bunch of more resources. And to get test grades up, and it seems like they had done that. But for whatever reason, and I'm really not sure myself, things have slid backwards in a disastrous manner. Now, is this in your opinion, is this a matter of like laws that are handicapping these administrators, or could it be like bigger societal trends that might be occurring? What is causing this type of behavior, and are there ways that we can avoid this, or is it just kind of the way things are? Let's go to our friend Lactoid.
Yeah. So I looked into this school, and I was particularly interested, honestly, on how the racial demographics were changing in this school from 1994. And you see a pretty consistent trend in Brockton from 1994 until today, or at least within the past couple of years, where there has been a steady shift, a very consistent shift of fewer white people, fewer white students every year, and slightly more black students every year, except for the past couple of years. And you start to see like an increase in the number of Hispanic students. The other thing that I saw was that a lot of the accolades the school is given are kind of suspiciously worded. So it's not that the school is performing better than 90% of other schools. It's that they have improved. They improved 90%. They've improved more than 90% of other schools in that state. So, and it was during 2000, basically beginning in 2005, and then there was some movement in 2008, and then 2012 as well. And then you're seeing kind of the recent violence. I have no idea if the school is actually exemplary. I had some difficulty finding that data. It just apparently improved a lot from where it was, which is good for the school. I think that if they're having issues with discipline now, it's probably a mix of COVID. We saw a crime spike generally after COVID. I think that would probably translate over to schools as well. And I think that I think we've all seen too many fucking videos, and we've seen too many stats on teachers getting their ass kicked and not being able to do anything about it. When children are disruptive, it not only affects the teachers, but it also affects the learning environment of other students around them. So if kids are particularly disruptive and they're starting fights and they're starting fight clubs in the school, kick them out, send them somewhere else. That's what you have to do.
Okay, please. Let's go to Scott.
Yeah, so I kind of agree with what Lactoid was saying. I was going to talk about that. Yeah, so the improvement is, many of the accolades that the school is given, as Lactoid said, are improvements from how bad they were before, not necessarily how good they are in comparison to the rest of the state or the rest of the district. So when I look at this issue from like the COVID portion of the question, I think it's important to recognize that yes, COVID did a lot of damage, and we're not sure how much. Well, not COVID. COVID didn't do the damage here, right? The government lockdowns and policies did, masking especially, and we've yet to see the worst of that damage, because who it did the most damage to, for sure, was children that were learning to speak and learning to read and write and things like that, where masks, even when they were in school, were detrimental. Um, but every school is having that problem, right? So like to be like, oh, that's had this massive problems now. I, I'm sure it played a factor, but it seems like a conservative cope, because it's a big scary, it's a thing that the current po- Republican, I don't want to say conservative cope, Republican politicians might want to bring up, even though they were fucking supporting the lockdowns and shit, half of them, a few years back, anyways. But what I want to do is I want to look at it and compare it to like other schools and see like, well, why is it that this school is failing and other schools aren't, despite having worse issues? I think a great example of that is Harlem Prep Charter School in New York City. So the Harlem Prep Charter School in New York City is a high school that is 99% minority, right? I think it's 58% black. It is a charter school where they are allowed to kick people out. And what does it mean when you can kick people out? It means if you misbehave, you don't get to be there anymore. This is what happens when you have a privatized setting or something that is mimicking the private model. This is the strength of that school, is because it does two things. Number one, it gets rid of those kids that are a distraction, that are harming other people's education. And number two, it means that there's high parental involvement. If you're worried that if your kid acts up, they're going to get kicked out of the school and they're not going to get a good education, then guess what? The parents are involved. The parents go to parent teacher conferences. The parents pay attention to what their kids are doing, pay attention to who their friends are. And I think the success of that model speaks for itself, because while New York only has 55% of people in high school being competent in math, Harlem Prep has 95 plus. Right? It's in the top 1%. It's in the top 1% for reading. It's in the top 1% of everything, including what percentage of their students are on free school lunches, because all of their students are very poor, very economically disadvantaged, and they're getting the best. They're getting the best education, better than most of the extremely expensive private schools in New York City. And on top of that, they are just destroying any other public school for the amount of the percentage of their kids that are going to college. Um, yeah, when you're able to kick kids out and when you force high parental involvement by going closer to a private model, that's when education succeeds. But when you use the money in some new way to get the gym teacher to also teach English, you get some small results for a little while, and then the shit falls apart because it's not a long-term model for success.
Okay, Corey, please.
So I was not able to do a deep dive on the school. I'm pretty much just going only solely by the article that was sent. So I'll take Lactoids and Scott's word for all the other sort of extra information. But from just going by what I read in the article, as sort of Scott alluded to, COVID lockdowns probably had some sort of effect. But then it's hard to explain in terms of like why does it appear to be or is disproportionately affecting this school. But regardless, probably some sort of variable. But at least from what I gather, it seems to be if in fact it's true that there was this law that prohibits the school from suspending disruptive students, sort of like unintended consequences. If you're just going to have that and not have, let's say, other programs or other ways of addressing violence in schools, then that you pretty much I can see how this situation plays out. So in terms of solutions, just to get ahead of it, the solution should not be more whoopings or more beatings. Not that type of discipline. Definitely, what we need to do is every child needs a gun. No, definitely not.
And wine too, apparently, right?
and
what
wine,
about
yeah.
what about drone strikes?
Yeah. No, definitely not guns,
Only for
not
the brown
whoopings.
kids.
No drones, no hitting whatsoever. But probably this law, if possible, needs to be like rolled back, or you need to introduce, as alluded to the article, other programs that actually addresses the disruptive, violent students. And I'll leave it there for now.
Thanks so much. Let's go to Do You Want to Dream?
I think you're muted.
As someone who works with children, as a youth minister myself, and have my own youth program, and I work with children on behalf of the government as well. There is like an outbreak of children misbehaving right now, especially right now in middle schools, and I do see it in high schools. And it does correlate with right after, the COVID lockdowns. Once you remove a child from like their friends, society for up to 2 years, they're missing a lot of education and how to deal with people. And so this is kind of like a whiplash or a backlash. I'm not sure how you what phrasing you want to use of that whole 1 to 2 year environment. As far as the solution, I do think it's gonna take multi-level, multifaceted approach. It's gonna take more funding from the government because when you have or some way somehow to incentivize having more teachers. I don't know how you're gonna do that, but a lot of the problem is having not enough teachers to have small enough classrooms in public schools. Another problem is the lack of resources that parents have, whether that be actual money or time to afford a tutor or have an education for their child that's to supplement the public schooling. And I know Fabian was talking about, or Scott was talking about, what about have high risk or high tough results or tough consequences for misbehaving, such as kicking them out of school. So that way parents can get involved. That just incentivizes parents to be more involved. A lot of problems come from situations where, at least in my instances, these kids are like foster kids. They don't really have parents that are involved. They lack a type of guide or role model. They don't have, or if they do, their guide or role model, they're in prison, or their guide or role model, they're somehow involved with the justice system. They're not a good role model. They don't have a good role model at their home for them to model their behavior after. And at least in my instance, anecdotally, my mom could never attend a parent-teacher conference because she was working 3 jobs. There was no time for her to come home. Or some parents work the night shift. There's no way they can come after school. So that being said, it's going to take a multifaceted. You're going to have to approach from nonprofits, community-based organizations, and the government, and the teachers, and the parents if they could. Boom.
Okay, Gibbs.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come as no surprise to anybody that I think that the lack of the school's ability to properly and incentivize these kids through applicable discipline is a major contributing factor in this situation. So we're not going to dive into that, but yeah, I mean, and we don't really need to dive into the COVID. I think we all know that the COVID lockdown was just an abysmal failure and was a major punch to the face in regards to everything here in the United States. Like just with regards to children, especially. I mean, these kids didn't get formative memories. Of course, they're going to act out and be jackasses. But it does come back to, like I said, the accountability. I mean, we're having an issue here in Texas where Texas is taking over the school, and we'll see how that works out, right? But to me, like I said, we do need. I don't know if kicking kids out of school is the solution. Right, because if you do kick them out, like these suspensions where they like leave school and they have nobody watching them at home, like that doesn't make kids not be good. Things like ISS might be more appropriate, or like you have an alternate school where you send the bad problem children, but also allowing teachers to discipline these kids in some way instead of like just having these little fucking terrors run rampant and roughshod throughout the community, having fight clubs like they're like Mike Tyson is outrageous. And like the fact that they even offer talk about maybe bringing in the National Guard to a school, that is crazy to me. It's just dumbfounded to me that we can't sit here and look at a direct causation between no discipline and then kids being terrorists, and then everybody go, oh, we don't want to risk the kids. And I will say, as one alternative, as a solution other than discipline, I think we need to require kids to have some sort of extracurricular activity, even if they don't make the team or they're not good enough to make a team, but they need to be forced to do more stuff with a team. Maybe, oh, you're the C team for the football team, but guess what? So I guess you're just going to be running laps all day. Like, whatever. We need to do more community building through teams and sports, because that actually helps people to develop these skills that they need to work within a community.
Thank you, Doobie.
So I feel like probably multiple people here went to high schools kind of like this. right? Where you had people dealing drugs, had a ton of gangs, lots of fights, lots of all kinds of shit happening, right, all the time. And I mean, I went to 3 different high schools, and 2 of them it wasn't like uncommon for like a cop to randomly show up at the classroom with a drug dog, right, a few times a month.
Damn.
Yeah, like so in that kind of environment, it's not. They say in the articles that I read that they're setting up fight clubs. Sure, I'm sure that's happening to some extent, but if they're also dealing drugs in the school, and you have a lot of issues with I mean, the drugs themselves are an indicator that there's some connection to some outside group, probably gangs, right? That is giving them the drugs to sell into the school. So they probably have a gang issue that's underlying a lot of this. I don't think suspensions are the way to deal with shit like this. The high schools that I went to, one of them had a C school behind it. I don't know if you guys know what a C school is, but it's like a continuation program, quote unquote, where it's for kids who are at risk of failing, not graduating. They're not getting like the credits they need to graduate high school as a senior, so they take them out of the normal school, and you put them into the C school, which was basically like a handful of manufactured, what are they called? These pre-built little like trailers that were classrooms behind the campus that had big ass gates around them, so you had no interaction between those students and the rest of the high school students. And they were just sitting like this box all day. Right, I actually ended up there for my senior year because I was a terrible student. Not for fighting, just 'cause I wasn't doing work. I fucking hated school. And I think that sending them to something like that makes way more sense, because I think the real goal here should be to separate the problem people from the people who aren't actually a problem. I think it's like a poison, right? It's terrible to talk about them like it's poison, but the longer they're there, the more fucked up they make everybody around them. Right? The more fucked up they make the environment for everyone around them. So you separate them from everybody else. You can't really do shit about what's going on at home. I guess based on the convictions of the parents of the mass shooter in, like, what was it, Massachusetts, I think? I can't remember. I guess they are starting to charge parents for some kind of negligence when their kids act out in extreme ways. So maybe that's something you could look into, right? If you can show that this is like a long-term string of negligence that led these children to behave in this way. But short-term, I think the goal should be just to separate them. I don't think suspension is the answer. I don't think expelling them is the answer. You literally just need to put them to another program that's much more strict, much more regimented, has much heavier police or security presence, so that they're not able to do this. And if they continue to bring drugs into the school and just kind of shit, just fucking send them to jail like you would anybody else. Like it's ridiculous that that suspension is even being considered as like the solution here.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, everything that I read seemed to have like very different theories on the problems for why this school has problems. The New York Post called it the most violent school in the country, when I didn't actually see any evidence to back that up, or any statistics or anything like that. It just seemed to be a something catchy to say. But I've saw that, yeah, the parents have asked for the feds to come in, which I don't know what they would do, but that seems pretty drastic. Um, but the demographic change seems to be pretty real. And not only is a demographic change going to change the people at the school, but it's likely going to change income for housing, which is going to change property taxes, which is going to change the amount of money that the school has, which budgets have been getting cut, electives have been getting cut from the school, which I would imagine is going to change the school pretty drastically. On top of that, the philosophy that everybody's deemed as made the school that figured it out, the school that's doing it right. According to teachers, they've kind of dropped that philosophy over the last couple of years. The problems didn't start in 2020 or 2021 when COVID was around. The problem started in 2016. They started having an issue with dropout rates again in 2016. So it doesn't seem to have a whole lot to do with COVID. It seems to have a lot more to do with all of the other issues with the actual school, the actual faculty, the demographic changes, the amount of, the budget cuts, and the fact that they are not following the philosophy that made them, a respected school in the first place.
Okay. And finally, our friend Ollie.
So the demographic change, it just said that it was For black students, it was down 15%. For white students, it was down a third. And for Hispanic students, it went up 20%. I just don't know what the numbers are like, up and down from. So I don't really know how much the demographic changed. But so to what Doobie said, suspending students doesn't really do anything because the students that are disrupting and bringing weapons to school and doing all that, they likely want to be suspended. They just get to be free because their parents aren't at home taking care of them anyways. Because the result of your parents being negligent is you bringing weapons to school and starting fight clubs. That's typically what happens. I think with these kids that are like a huge problem, I think we brought this up a couple on the last panel. At this point, it feels like every county just needs either a military school or a fucking border school that these at-risk youths can go to. Because regular teachers can't sit here and fight students. There's no form of discipline that's going to actually reach at-risk youths in schools because the most you can do is suspend them, and that isn't going to benefit the students. That's not really a punishment. That's a vacation to them. And so, yeah, for at-risk kids and for parents that are clearly negligent, like if you are telling parents that, hey, your kid can get kicked out of school, that should have them be more invested in the kids' lives. And if it doesn't, fine, your kid gets kicked out of school. But then also, I think you lose the right of like taking care of your kid if you're just giving it up. And so, yeah, every county should have a military school or a boarding school run by the military, and that should go there.
You know what you're describing? It sounds like, I don't know if you been on Netflix recently, but they have a new limited series called The Program.
No. The program was like they were breaking the kids and like roboting them. I'm saying like it seems that I don't want to send kids to like jail or juvenile, right? I don't want to put them in just like prison system from like 14 to 18. And it seems that like the only way that these kids are going to have any form of structure or discipline is honestly military school. I don't see the other outlet that these kids can have through normal teachers that are just, like what they can't discipline these kids. And so the option can't be suspending them because that doesn't do anything. And so it just does really seem to me that these kids should be in a,
I think a more palatable solution, which is going on in LA right now, and we're seeing it right here. I'm actually part of the government agency that's trying to build a program to help kids like these, and it's that we're gonna kind of give an incentive structure for these kids to behave in school. So we're something like paying these certain kids to behave, giving them a certain incentive structure like that.
Bad kids?
The bad kids get paid to be good kids?
No, bad kids.
So what about the good kids that are good? They don't get paid?
Oh, what?
They're already
for me.
Such a corrupt incentive structure.
Yeah, that's not going to work, man.
It's working in LA, so that's why we're trying to do it here in SF. But the issue is that for regular human beings like me and you, who are not like psychotic, who have good families, good support structure, having that good support structure and people that care about us and good role models is already incentive enough for us to do what's right and what should be happening.
So insane. That's going to backfire so bad to take.
I mean, it's already being successful in LA.
Yeah, that's it's funny.
What's the success rate?
Let Scott go ahead. Pause. Scott, please.
But the concept that you're going to take children that were previously bad kids, right? Which is also almost always going to correlate with kids that are in more gang-ridden neighborhoods, lower socioeconomic status, etc. And then specifically give them money once they start behaving is like begging some of those kids to have money they wouldn't have to go do bad shit like buy drugs. Like it's gonna backfire.
Yeah, obviously it's not just money. Obviously it's you need to meet up with your mentor. Your mentor is heavily involved. It's like a daily.
Get your paycheck.
It's an actively.
Okay, well, if the program's different than what you described, then yeah, sure, maybe it might work.
Yeah, it's more heavily focused. I think the most important part about young people's minds is having a good role model or like somebody in their life actively daily. Like the reason I can 100% say that a huge reason why I am who I am and the way that I am and being successful in my life is because I had a huge support system. I had multiple mentors that were helping me in any endeavor I wanted, with giving me opportunities for scholarship, flying me out to see different colleges, seeing things like that. what I wanted to be. People are already in my life that were already there, so I could ask them, how do I become somebody like you? A lot of these kids don't have somebody like that. I looked up to my older sister, who was 10 years older than me, and she's getting her PhD now. I have a role model that I can actualize, hey, and she's giving me advice. These are what these kids need. I think it's a huge correlation, probably like overnight.
We got to stop saying that. We got to stop saying this is the thing that is missing, right? Because I think we all can accept that there are multiple problems and multiple issues, right? Like I'm with you. I'm with you. Good role models, Big Brother programs, especially having a male figure in a lot of these children's lives, young men. I totally agree with you. I think we got to be careful about this is the thing, right? Because there's a lot of problems. And I think we agree that there's a lot of problems. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, because I heard a lot of you guys kind of referencing the police and referencing like, what do we do with these kids and discipline them, is we have to understand that police and schools have had a really big unintended consequence. Because what has occurred over the years is there didn't used to be school resource officers. And if they were only in the worst neighborhoods. And what occurred was that teachers disciplined students and gym teachers disciplined students. Over time, parents got involved and said, how dare you discipline my children? How dare you pop my kid on the butt with a wiffle ball bat, right? How dare you even tell my kid that they're a bad kid, etc. And so what ended up happening is they stepped away. The problems started increasing because of that, and they brought in police officers. But here's the real issue with bringing in the police officers. The concept was the bad kids would get dealt with. But the thing is that we created accidentally a culture of silence, because a lot of teachers mean really well, and they're like women, and they're young women, and they're very liberal. And the idea of putting a kid with the law enforcement and having that kid have a criminal record is anathema to everything that they believe in. So what they do is they don't say anything in fear that the parents will get involved if they try to discipline the kid. But then they also don't want to send them to the cops too early, because the cops will give this kid that doesn't deserve it a criminal record because they got in a fight, right? They don't want a kid that got in one fight to get an assault charge or a battery charge. And so what they do is they don't involve the police. And so now nobody does anything, despite the fact that there are these police officers here. And so we've actually, by bringing police in, we've actually increased violence in some ways, because the problem has to get so bad that even the teacher is like, fuck it, this kid needs to go to the cops and get a charge. And so I think that is a certain thing that we have to recognize, that when we bring in police, we often create a culture of silence, because the teachers don't want kids to get criminal records, which I get.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
I want to go back to what I was saying at the beginning, that the budgets are being cut.
Right.
Like what Green was saying is that, like, yes, the father figures in people's lives is an important aspect. So are extracurricular activities. Lots of times, especially for young men in black neighborhoods, those two are combined into one thing, where they get football coaches, they get basketball coaches, they get mentors and leaders through these extracurricular activities, and a lot of them being cut because of problems with the budget. Like, these are causing more and more problems, and more like highly successful schools do have a lot of extracurricular activities to where they're keeping kids off the streets, they're keeping kids busy, they're making sure that they're not just getting bored and going out and doing drugs and doing stupid shit. And
the data doesn't support that.
What do you mean?
The data doesn't support that. What you're talking about? The data supports that schools with more money do better. Well, why do schools with more money do better? They do better because they have people who make more money in them. They have demographics of people that are higher IQ, that are more involved, that don't have that wait longer periods of time to have children, that have higher personality trait conscientiousness, and their children model that as well. When we throw money as an intervention in inner city schools, yes, they do better, but they don't do
already.
They don't do. Yeah, but yes, I understand that. Like, when you get rid of money, problems get worse, and when you add money, some problems go away. But the problem is that if you have all the money in the world, sure, you can throw it somewhere. But the worse a school is, the lower socioeconomic school status the school is, the less effect the more money has. So it's like, this isn't a problem that's going to be solved
black people
with money.
being the problem here.
Tom, I want to
go back to black people being the problem.
Well,
yeah, go
with this one actually, I was kind of along the same lines of what you're thinking, Tom. But the reason why I brought up how the racial demographics were changing so consistently would seem to kind of cut against this, right? Because from 1994, it was over half white. And that's when the school was doing apparently the worst, right? And then over time, like about in year 1999, they implemented this strategy. And then since basically year 2000, you saw an increase in the test scores and a consistent increase in the percentage of students that are black. So you wouldn't, if this
Wait,
was
you're saying since 2000 the test scores went up?
yeah, so the school had improved like 90%.
2016, the dropout rate went up as well.
Yeah, so we have a school
That
that's
was
becoming
4 years after Chapter 222.
right. So we have a school that's like increasing in percent black and increasing in test scores, and it's doing pretty fucking good. And then it starts hitting 2016 apparently, and you start seeing these dropout rates. And then you see post pandemic, you start seeing kind of like a spike in violence as well. So it does. I think that in particular is super convincing to me that it's probably less of a demographic thing here and probably more of just like the school's policy changed for the worse. That seems more reasonable proposition, I would think.
Well,
Well,
it
that
seems
makes
to
it
be
was
a
harder to
number
expel
of
kids.
issues. So that's why I'm saying there's like a
That's what I
number
mean,
of
the
issues here,
policy.
because not only are they changing their philosophy, yes, and the policies and shit like that, but they also have the demographic changes where they're also seem to having budget issues because of I would assume this is through income taxes.
No, but then
problems
why
with this,
are the
and
test scores
there's
getting better then though? Like when we get more black people in the school, I'm assuming that the connection you're trying to make is that more black students equals less property taxes.
I don't know. Again, I'm correlating this with dropout rates. So like test scores going up is one thing, but they seem to also have problems with violence dropout rates. Like that dropout rates and
That was
violence in
later.
schools are pretty high correlated.
Yeah.
That was later though. So post 2016, that's when that started.
Okay, so then what are we talking about? Are we not talking
He's
about
talking
right
about early
now?
2000s,
Early
late 90s is
or
when you start to see the massive demographic
Okay.
change. You don't start to see the problems with dropouts and violence really until
No, the
2016,
demographic
which is
change.
17
the biggest
years
part
later.
of the demographic change happened between 2016 and in 2020, where they had over 40,000 Afro Latinos come into the Boston area, and now it's up about 40-something% of the demographics are Afro Latino. Like they're
It's a second wave, not the biggest shift.
of the black. Yes,
They're
but
down
that's-
15% black and then
I
up
could've sworn it was
20%
the biggest
Hispanic.
percentage.
They're down 15% black students and they're up 20% Hispanics and also down
This
a
says
third white
Afro-Latino.
students.
Hold on,
So
hold on,
it's
hold on.
like,
And
Real quick.
the article just said Hispanic.
Oh,
I'm
real
just
quick.
telling
Hold on, real quick. Important like thing to think about. Census data is released in 2021. I wonder if we might have had a school district change there, like in terms of where the
Yeah, 'cause
lines were. If it wasn't actually
everything I'm
moving,
reading stopped
if
at
we
about
had-
2020.
I'm wondering if right around then we had is when we changed, because it would follow the census, and also schools were closed, so you saw a lot of redistricting because there weren't kids there anyway, so it was easier to implement. I wonder if part of the problem here is they might have gobbled up some more worse neighborhoods, and we're just not seeing that in the data. And that's what that big demographic shift isn't actually an influx of people moving into the district, rather the district being redrawn. Because that's when districts were redrawn all across the country is with the census.
Yeah,
So I wonder if
wanna
that's
be
what
clear,
happened.
when we're saying like black population, this is like considered to be the most diverse group of black people in the country. So like it's something like 40% are native born. They're not even from the United States. So this is not just like black
Okay.
Americans. These are like black people from even outside of the country.
But again,
Go ahead,
right, like when
Corey.
we compare.
That could explain it.
Oh yeah.
Well, I just had to
Yeah.
clarify. This is like off topic because back to what Scott said, so I don't want to like derail. But like, but going back just briefly, like I'm not in favor of more policing in schools, and so I understand your point of like maybe creating this culture of silence. I can see that playing out. But then I'm curious, like, so what would be your potential like proposed solution to that? As in, I assume you don't want to go, maybe you do, going back to like teachers, whatever, carrying out a punishment or whatnot.
I don't think you can go. I don't think you. I mean, like, first solution would be to abolish public schools. Not going to happen, right?
Sure,
So
yeah, I
second
understand.
solution,
Yes, abolish a
right?
state.
Second solution, yeah. Second solution is I would decriminalize childhood behavior and involve cops more in terms of moving children to better environments, like Doobie suggested, right? So I would involve the police more, and at the same time decriminalize assault and battery in schools and maintain criminalization for, like, more severe things where there's severe injury or like maybe even attempted murder and stuff. But like two kids getting in like a fist fight where both of them walk away and like one kid got a black eye, I don't think a kid needs to catch a charge for that. Especially if
agree.
it's going to stop teachers from involving the police and actually stop there being records and documentation and like people actually getting involved, because what's happening now is people are waiting way too late until these kids are already horrible kids to actually get involved, because of the fear of prosecution and the fear of criminal charges.
But so I'm assuming, so the decriminalization aspect, would you want, I guess, I assume couple that, from what I understand, like, so let's say that those two children that get in a fight and whatever, one of them has a black eye, is that for you? Would that be like this school should like expel those students right away type of thing?
I'm saying like if you get a charge with like assault and battery in school and there's no severe damage to the other person because you didn't like slam their head in concrete, like that famous video that everybody's arguing about whether or not that white chick was a bully or not, right? Like because you didn't do something crazy like that. Yeah, I think you should get a charge, but I think for minors in school, it should be like a misdemeanor and it should involve community service. Right? Like you should be able to get the cops involved, and then it's like, no, you're gonna paint houses in the neighborhood or fucking work at Goodwill or something. We're gonna, and then so that we can get a record and that'll go away when you turn 18, right? And that we can get people involved. Now, granted, obviously, getting kids involved with police, et cetera, is gonna have other problems, et cetera, et cetera. So I mean, it's not my first fucking solution.
We're just
There are many other
pipelining
things
them
that
to
I'm trying,
juvie.
but-
We're just
No,
sending them to
fair
juvie.
enough.
That's how it's going to end up happening.
Well, if we
It's pretty
decriminalize,
cool.
that's why I'm saying we need to decriminalize it, right? Like,
But then
it needs to
there's
be something.
yeah. But then there's
It
like
needs to be
there's
something that you're only catching a charge in the sense that it's getting documented, so that we
So-
can do something about it.
so the
Wait,
problem
but
the
once
problem
they're
is
no longer juveniles, it gets cleared anyways. So what's the point?
Yeah, when they get to 18, it would get cleared anyways, but not if they had felonies. A lot of times, those felonies will carry over.
and I mean if
And
a kid,
also, the
They're
damage from
normally
the
get some
damage
sort of
from going to
pretrial
juvie is a
diversion
serious
if you're
problem.
a juvenile.
Yeah.
Yeah, normally you're going to get some sort of pretrial diversion or some sort of first offenders or
Yeah,
some sort
yeah,
of juvenile
yeah,
exemption to
yeah, I
where
understand
it's going to get
practical.
taken off your record one way or the other,
Yeah.
unless you're continuously committing felonies. Then yeah, it probably should
It's
stay
it's
on your
less
record
about
felony.
what's on your record, right? And more about, are we funneling them into the justice system so that we can get them in juvie quicker, or are we creating a separate pathway where cops can be there, cops can help, because physically we need like a dude, not some teacher that's scared, right? But like a law enforcement officer that's legally allowed to stop the fight, right? And that they can be involved in such a way that we can put them towards something better, as opposed to I mean, I would
military
have to work it out and plan it out, right? But you get what I'm saying. Like whatever it may be, whatever program it is that you guys want to do. Like ultimately, I want to fucking get rid of all this shit, right? But I'm saying if we're gonna have cops in schools, what we shouldn't have is cops in schools, teachers that are afraid to touch the kids, and then teachers that are also afraid to send them to the cops because they know that they're going to get criminal charges and that it's not actually going to help the kid.
if the kids are in the school, having the cop in the school doesn't change the problem that the other kids are getting distracted, that people don't want to send their parents to the school because the kids that are in the school are having a huge issue. And like Dream, to your point, like I know that mentors and all that is like nice, but how much kids are you reaching? So if there's 100 at-risk youth kids in your like community in your county, you're probably reaching 5 of them if they're 14 to 18 or 14 to 17 or 30, and being like, hey, here's a mentor. Because at that point, they probably don't respect the mentor that you're giving them because the life that they're living is clearly not,
Yeah, they never respect them in the beginning, but
but even the one that does, you're hitting a minority of the people. So you still have a problem with all these kids at these schools. The only option is to suspend them. Doobie, to your point, like if you build a C school in the back, the same.
Literally just do charter schools.
Yeah,
Well, actually-
once again, no.
Like 90% of these kids.
I mean, charter schools. That's why. Well, I mean, I'm saying because they need the discipline. That's why I was kind of pushing the military school thing. Because once again, if you build the C school in the back, like Dewey was saying, the kids that are fucking up in the regular school, now you're just collecting them, putting them together. They're gonna commingle amongst each other. It's not like they're gonna have any more respect for the teacher in the C school. You need a form of discipline to, like Gibbs's point. I don't think when I went to school in Lebanon once when I think I was like 11. The teachers, I went to a second rate, so I didn't go to the private school. I went to what's considered like the public schools over there. This was like years ago. The teachers were allowed to hit you. The teachers were smoking cigarettes in class. All right. and like the parents gave the permission to the teachers to do that, and their grading system, they rank 1 through whatever how many students are graduating in that class. And so the discipline that comes with that, you have few kids that act up. And so like I'm saying that you need to give them a school where they're at risk of something. If they're causing these types of problems where they're almost catching felonies at young ages, then yeah, the alternative would be putting them in a school with hyper discipline. To me, that'd be military school.
Well, hold on.
let's
Even
go
in
to-
your example, you said few kids act up. So that's also
Because they were getting whooped in class by the teachers.
no. You
Gibbs,
said
I- to
few
be
kids
fair.
act up. Few kids act up here too.
In the
Like
school
you-
that we're talking about?
So like, what is it? The majority of the schools acting up?
It's enough for parents to want the cops to come in.
Oh, no,
National
I-
Guard
I-
to come in.
Yeah,
Hey,
then that like
No,
it's
no,
enough.
you want to dream?
Uh,
No.
Gibbs, I see your hand.
Wait, what do you mean?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You can respond to him, Scott. But then I do want to get Gibbs a chance.
Wait, was to my point. I don't get the
No,
point
I
you're
was just
making.
saying, D10 Dream is right.
What do you mean?
Like a majority of kids, even in these horrible fucking schools, are just suffering from a minority of these bad kids.
Yeah.
Like even in these horrid fucking schools, it's like 10-15% of the kids are really bad, and then the
Yeah.
other 90-85% of kids
so-
are just in this fucked system.
To my point, Jimmy, it was maybe then if that's the case, then it was maybe like 1 to 3% of kids that would act out, because if you acted out, the teacher could whoop you. If you called the parents would be like, yeah, just whoop the kid's ass and call it a fucking day. Why are you he's with
Yeah,
you?
but we
And
have
most of these
studies.
kids would act out.
We know whooping is not the
Well,
best.
once
thing
again,
to
that's
do.
why I didn't recommend whooping. That's why I didn't recommend whooping for America. And obviously, we're like, blah, blah, blah.
Well,
I
neither
said
is physical
military
punishment,
school.
right?
I know. Well, that's why I said
Physical punishment of any kind.
military school isn't physical punishment, but there's a whole lot of structure and discipline.
Don't
that
they
goes
make you
into
do
it.
physical punishments like push-ups?
Is that if a kid's bringing a weapon to school and causing fights, yeah, I'm sorry, doing push-ups isn't like a traumatic thing. Go do some fucking push-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go
Yeah,
to
dude.
let's go to Gibbs.
You
Yeah,
tell
I
them to
mean-
push. Like fuck off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
true.
I don't know that. I mean, I've seen some of these studies that y'all keep alluding to, saying that the whoopings don't help, but I'm not buying
They
that
don't.
bullshit because I'm
We
not
know.
buying.
We
Yeah, I
know.
know y'all. It's
Ass
just I don't
whoopings
buy
is
it.
your problem solver for
Listen,
everything.
it does solve problems. Like I mean, like, but in regards to that, first of all, I want to say that fighting and assault mainly is already a class A misdemeanor. At least here in Texas. So like they're not gonna have to worry unless they're over here like really beating the shit out of somebody and like it's like a charge like
Or doing it multiple times.
yeah, or like doing it all the time. That's
Unless
not
it's
gonna really
mutual
be
combat.
yeah, unless it's mutual combat. But even then, it's like, and like, even then, you know, I remember when I was in high school, say the coaches found out these two kids hated each other, right? And they'd be, all right, these kids are having problems. They want to beef. What they'll do is they'll put the pads on, or they'll give you the headgear, and they'll give you the
How
gloves.
old are you?
And I'm 33. Like, there they go in there.
Yeah,
and guess
I'm
what?
32, same thing.
What?
And we're swinging. And we're
What?
swinging. Yeah.
This
you
was
give
happening in
them the
2006.
Oh shit!
headgear. Yeah.
Wait,
Like,
this
I don't know
happened,
my mom's
wait,
age.
this happened with me too. The
We're the same
principal,
age. Holy shit!
Yeah, I know.
when I was interacting with someone and I was going to get into a fight in the hallway, he took us to the auditorium. He said, "Listen, you guys are big tough guys. Fight." We didn't fight because we were pussy, and he proved that we were putting on a show. But
Well, these kids, we were fighting. They would give us gloves and a headset. Whoa, like I don't understand. Like guess what? And then it's done. And he's like, all right, now don't act up
in
again.
Mexico?
No, this is in Texas. Like I don't understand like why this is a crazy concept.
Texas.
Like you know, like afraid of like everybody's so coddled. Like listen, you have to have discipline. Like you just have to have it.
Nobody's-
Full like
nope.
filter. Like I understand why we're so terrified saying, oh, everybody's gonna have these mental issues from getting whooped. Like, oh no, it's so. Well, guess what?
You're like the poster child. Like it's
mean,
on
I-
display like right
And
now.
I'm very
It's doing
successful.
bad.
I don't commit any crimes. Like I don't.
That's
I
the
make
baseline.
money.
The majority of people don't commit
I
crime.
make money. I'm college educated. I own my own house. Like what? Like all my bills are paid. Like what more makes
You
life
should.
success you want?
Hey,
Like,
bro, you do eat a little too much.
Sure, I eat a little too much. I also made college sports. I was a D1 wrestler. Like, I mean, everything I've ever wanted to do, I fucking accomplished. So maybe
Yeah, and you're the poster child for that pretty much correlate the studies in terms of like you hit your child and you're at increased rate of obesity and overweight.
I mean,
Like,
sure now because I'm
But
like I said,
Overall
like,
successful is the
I'm-
point.
I'm overall successful, and yeah, even if we talk about obesity, I mean, I set off a metal detector at the airport, so I mean, like, there's also correlation to like having physical injuries. Probably gonna make you obese. Now, if I wanted to, I could stop being a pussy and go out there and work real hard and it hurt. But I don't need to do that because I'm making money and I'll just die at 65. It'll be fine. But the point is that I'm making overall, I'm a productive member of society. I'm not over here causing riots in a school, but because I'm not afraid of like getting disciplined. I can't even tell you how many times in school one of the bad kids would tell some shit to the teacher like, "What are you gonna do about it?" Knowing the teacher ain't gonna do fucking squat. And they're like, "I'll just go to the ISS right now. You can just go ahead and sit there." And they would just walk to the ISS room and sit in there, and they would already be in there before like the principal
I
even
loved
sit there.
ISS.
They knew.
Yes.
Yeah, they loved it.
I
So
love
like,
that shit. I
Here's
get
the
it.
problem.
Yeah, but ISS was nothing. You just
pro-
sit in a class and
the-
stare straight.
The
Yeah.
problem,
So it was like, accomplishes nothing.
the problem with what you're saying is that you're only
Said it's all
incentive.
bullshit.
Yeah. The only incentive, like, and not only is it bullshit, but what you're basically telling me the only incentive that you had for doing whatever you did is because you knew that if you didn't do X, you were gonna get hit.
exactly.
So, but which means there's going to come to be a time in your life where that's not gonna be a threat anymore.
Why,
For
go to
whatever,
jail?
for example,
Yeah, that's
I-
not discipline.
for what
It is discipline. It absolutely is.
For
discipline.
example,
I'm sorry
like,
that your parents were baby vac bitches and wouldn't give you a whooping and like.
I know
treat
you're
you
not
like
talking about me.
No, my parents
I'm just
did whoop me,
saying.
but
I
that's
know
not
you ain't talking
discipline.
about me.
That's the
I'm
same
saying,
thing.
like,
You
listen,
saying
if you
the
why
teacher telling
don't like
to go fight, that's not discipline.
That's
What I'm
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
hold
you're
on.
working on the
Let me
issue.
demonstrate what the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is that once you remove the threat of violence to correlate with action wanting to be done, then you have no incentive to do that action.
that's
You
not
have
true.
no,
Well, you have to give people structure. No, if you just have
Structure.
violence, you need
Yeah.
structure too. But I don't think violence. I mean,
Right.
this is Gibbs's point.
The violence
has
is
become so
basically just
so
like.
wait.
hold on.
If
No,
you-
if you're making
if the
a false
structure,
claim of, like,
if the structure can exist without the violence, why not just do that?
because the structure is not disciplining them enough. You have to give them a concrete punishment that they are afraid of, right?
Why
so,
is violence the only punishment that they
Because,
can?
bro, because kids are bad. People are bad. Like, if you're sitting here and you're just acting up and you're just going to be sitting here dicking off and you're not afraid of going to ISS, you don't give a fuck. But if you're going to walk in there and
That's
go,
the
oh,
only
shit,
punishment.
if they're going to go, oh, every time you start acting up,
I mean,
they
what
smack
are
your
the
hand
other
with a-
punishments?
Yeah, but let me give you an example, right? So say you're a bad kid and you know that the only punishment is you're going to get suspended or
Give them
ISS.
some.
Right,
And they
and
take it away.
instead, every time they start acting up in a teacher's class, they smack your hand with a ruler before you can even get going. It stops the momentum of the like wild acting, right? Like
When I was in school in Morocco, bro, they could hit me, and I remember I kind of liked the pain, and I was like, I want to brag to the kids.
This is getting into such.
Well, we're unearthing some deep, like,
Hold on.
repressed
Well, here's
sexual
the
shit,
point.
I think, right now.
Oh, but Dream, to your point though, when you say the violence is gone, nothing's gonna matter. The violence is a stand-in for like society. So now, say I like lost a business or something, I like lost a job, or whatever bad happens. That would be the violence now, right? And guess what? Because I had
You mean
this,
consequences? You mean non-violent consequences?
no, because those are stand-ins, right? The violence is incentivizing you with something you don't want to happen to you, right? So now I'm obviously not going to get beat up. My mom's not going to come down and give me the belt. But if some other bad shit happened, guess what? Now, since I'm used to like life having consequences, I'm able to handle this shit. These kids know they have no consequences.
Did you know that black kids are much more likely to get spanked, yet also much more likely to have violent neighborhoods, have violent schools, shit like that? I don't know.
That's due to money, not due to spanking.
Yeah, that's socioeconomic.
What about Arab
That's
kids?
kind of my point. Is that his
There are
thing
plenty of
was like,
studies that
like,
control for
correlate with spankings
socioeconomic
or
status.
something, but it's not. That like the correlation will have nothing to do with.
They're also
What about
less
Arab
likely
kids
to
in
be
Arab
bothered
neighborhoods?
about
Like,
other Well, I mean,
what about
yeah,
what
you're
about
still
Arab
having
kids in the Arab
Hold on,
neighborhood?
you're leaving out other
We're having
factors.
conversations
What
about
is
those
an Arab
things.
neighborhood?
Hey, let Tom
Hold
talk.
on,
You're gonna
now
chance to
we're
talk.
talking about spankings.
What, outside of Arab nations?
Dearborn.
Let Tom
Really?
talk. I do. Hey guys, let Tom talk. I do want to try to refocus this conversation for our remaining time because we've kind of gotten off track.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was doing. As I was saying, like it doesn't seem to be like an actual real correlation with whether or not like you were spanked. We were talking about the economic problems. We were talking about like school funding. We were talking about the the
It's the
systems
structure
that were in
aspect.
place, and so that so we just kind of I wanted to kind of refocus us back onto that hopefully.
But I mean,
Did the
even what Chris
funding
said,
actually
it's
drop for the
structure.
school? Do we know this?
I know that they're
Wow.
making budget. I don't know about the funding dropping, but I know that they are making a ton of budget cuts.
Like
and that they are
when did the
getting
budget
rid of
cuts kick in?
extracurricular activities. It was at
Half.
Because like I'm aware that one of the complaints was that there wasn't extra funding when they implemented the rule that you couldn't remove kids. But I
It
mean, was
says,
there actually a budget
meanwhile,
cuts?
a blooming district-wide budget crisis has left campuses so woefully understaffed. Hundreds of students have missed hours of valuable class time, stranded in the cafeteria, because they had no teachers or substitutes. At a recent school committee meeting, distraught staff and students begged for help. In response to several members of school committee called in the National Guard to intervene. In 2010, the New York Times featured Brockton High School on the front page. The headline, 4,100 Massachusetts students prove small isn't always better. So yeah, it just talks about budget cuts, but I don't think it actually says when the budget cuts came. And then it starts going into, this is from the Boston Globe, 2024 article. Came out on the 18th.
You can throw all the money you want at the school. If the people are broke and the kids are coming to the school with the problems, the school having money doesn't change the fact that the kids are the ones causing the problems.
But
Yeah, but there's
But
definitely
I said before, and we all agreed. Like I said before, and we all agreed, right, that no univariate analysis, no one size fits all solution is going to be anything here, right? Like I can sit here and I can meme and scream about how we should abolish public schools and about how private schools are the fucking answer, and I'd be right. But you're all just gonna get fucking mad, and you're all just gonna fucking cope about it.
Because that still doesn't
Nevertheless,
solve the problem.
absolutely solves the
Why
problem.
the private schools the private schools are private schools. The kids that don't have money are going to the private schools, or they can't afford to go to those schools. You're just taking those kids, putting them somewhere else, and the kids are still causing a ruckus for the other people who can't afford private schooling. It doesn't change the problem.
So the problem is that bad kids exist, and we must solve all bad kids. That's an unsolvable problem.
No,
Right?
it's a solution to
actual
this
problem-
issue specifically.
No, the actual
Not saving the bad kids of
problem.
the world.
No. Yeah, that is what you're saying.
Yeah,
The
that is
actual problem, the actual problem is that there is a subset of children who are bad, and that they are dragging down entire school systems. Right, that's the actual problem. And so if your presumed thing is, well, that doesn't solve the problem. The fuck it doesn't, because when you look at charter schools that are able to get rid of the bad kids, what you have is low socioeconomic status kids that are on food stamps and that are on free school lunches that are 99% majority, that are the top performing schools in New York City, that beat even the millionaire fucking billionaire private schools in New York City. They whoop their asses despite being kids that obviously have a lower IQ and way less opportunities.
That's because they expel and they suspend the bad kids. They don't keep the bad kids.
So what Scott's saying is that Scott's saying is you can't save them all.
I never said you can save them all. That wasn't the point.
And so
My
when
point
you,
is,
so when you can't,
suspend the ones that, I know. So you can't save any of them. Is getting the point, because all you're doing is kicking them out of schools, right? Because all you're doing is excluding them from the schools because they're bad kids.
It's not all I'm doing. No.
Well, I mean, if you're selecting for the better students, the bad students aren't going. What else are you doing if you're not excluding just the bad kids? Which once again is fair. I don't think that's a bad thing. But I'm saying then these bad students don't have anywhere to go, and so that doesn't solve the larger issue.
They go to the bad kids school.
The more private the model,
which is that's the solution.
The more private the model, the more private the model, right? The more efficacious it's going to be, and the better the education is going to be. There are going to be a lot of factors that change. But setting all of that aside, just getting rid of the bad kids does two things. Number one, it means that the 85-90% of kids that are being dragged down by the bad kids get a shot at a real education, number one.
Agreed.
And number two, it means that parents that know that their kids might get kicked out because they're a problem kid get fucking involved, because they don't want their kids to go to the bad kids school. So parental involvement is the best way to solve these problems, because that's that is one of the biggest factors in terms of conduct disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, violence in schools, is a lack of parental involvement.
I don't disagree. I'm just saying, like, I guess the overall problem is that the bad kids don't have anywhere to go. So even if they're not involved in the school directly, they're still going to be involved in the community in the city. So like this is going to trickle down. So I guess my thing is like, yeah, obviously having better parents that are more involved with the kids is like the better solution. But then there are always going to be these rough kids that you're going to suspend out of the schools. We have to deal with them, and that's like, I guess the broader issue, because the issue isn't the school having money, or it's the issue is that they're
we're watching an Ayn Rand dystopia take place in our own fucking country, because the clear problem here is altruism. The clear problem is that all of these people are like, oh no, everybody deserves an education. Don't get rid of the bad kids. Keep the bad kids in the school. Don't beat the kids. Like, oh, a child is raised by a village. Yada,
exactly.
yada. And what you have is just a giant fucking violent, fucked up schools. And it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it. It's not going to solve it until you get rid of the bad kids and
throw money. Throw money into county military schools. Send the bad kids to the county military schools.
We already like in America, every school age child, the education that is spent on them, depending on the district, is somewhere between $11,000 and $25,000 a school year. Okay, if you're a mom of 3 living in New York City, right? If the school didn't steal money for taxes to pay for New York City public schools, instead you would and just gave you the money. Let's say they did steal the money and they just gave you the money instead. You'd get $75,000 a year from New York just for having 3 school-age children. Like,
that's
our
different than giving the
schools
schools
are taking massive amounts of money and failing astronomically. And
Fair.
we keep falling behind year after year.
That's what this school has, like a $19 million deficit in their budget. They overspent by almost $21 million last year, and the entire district now is making budget cuts for.
Well, you know why their budget got cut?
The governor's like trying to put more money in, but it could be that they were doing really well for a while because they were overspending so much for what their budget was.
Their budget got cut because they have a declining student body. So. The state of Massachusetts ties funding on a per pupil basis. So when you have students leaving the school, of course, that school's going to get less funding.
They have student count days where they count all the students, and then based on
that's
that
white
day,
flight and it's racism.
Well, now it's white flight and black flight, apparently, recently, and now it's
brown, beige flight.
I'm just curious, Scott, because I agree with the overall sentiment that pretty much just. Whatever, statistically speaking, like you can't save every child, and like bad children do exist.
Because it's a fact, yeah.
I use the example of kids like Macaulay Culkin and The Good Son. They exist. So I'm curious, like, of those children, like what would you want to have done with them, or how do we deal with those children? Like, should they just be like homeschooled, like pretty much, or like whatever, going to boarding school? Pretty much like the actual like social deviance, so to speak, but not quite like, as you said, those personality disorders. But like,
I think when you're talking about bad kids that are really, really bad, you're almost exclusively talking about high school kids, right? Like, I mean, yes, there's some middle school kids that are really, really bad, but for the most part, when we're talking about like selling drugs, beating the shit out of people in like very violent ways, you're talking about kids that are that. What I would say is that the concept that everybody needs to learn trigonometry is absurd. And I think when you're that bad of a kid, probably the best thing for them as a 14, 15-year-old would be to like an apprenticeship. Like to learn a trade, like being an electrician.
Ooh, I like that idea.
Learning plumbing, or working for ServPro or something. You know what I mean? Like cleaning up.
Here where I live,
crime scenes, like whatever.
Within our school
like they'd be way better served doing that.
So where I live, within our school district, they have a separate school that they start to send people to. So they have limits on like how many ISS things you can get, or how many markers you can get, how many times you can get in trouble. And then eventually they just have to send you to this other school. And it's not a boarding school. It's part of the school district, but they have very different rules. They are a lot stricter. You have a lot less freedom at this school. And
it's like, and they dress codes are super strict and all kinds of shit.
they have a lot more mentorship. They have a lot more like one-on-one interactions with the teachers and the students, a lot more help for them. So it's not only for bad kids, it is also for kids who have trouble doing their homework or getting schoolwork done, that they're too distracted. Like they have a ton of other options for these kids there. And it is just this one school that the entire district starts sending their
Hey,
kids to if they have problems.
I want to ask our friend Doobie, if you're still there, friend. Like, what would have been good for you and your family members? You know, you've talked about them, the ones who, yeah, maybe they had like parents who weren't the best, who weren't the nurturing types that were trying to encourage.
Not
here,
enough
right?
whoopings for this pair.
Not certainly not, certainly not, right? But yeah, like understanding your own personal journey that you had, and then like the far more difficult journey that other members of your family had. What do you think would have been helpful there?
So I did go to I think I did go to C school, right? And I think that was very helpful to me. I know that a lot of I think it was like supposed to be like at risk, meaning that you're like just behind on credits, but effectively it ended up being like a lot of the kids who were in gangs, a lot of kids who were getting to fights and shit like this, because they're the ones that were probably not going to graduate, right? You ended up with like a bunch of girls who had like who were pregnant in school or just had a kid in school, like these kind of people, right? So yeah, it's true. All these people were kind of concentrated in the same place. And that presented its own challenges, but the environment was much more strict than the normal school, right? You had within this like caged off little area, you had multiple discipline officers. You had a police officer who'd come by all the time, and if anybody caused any trouble, they'd immediately put in handcuffs and carted off by the fucking police, right? It was like that kind of like strict rule set. And for me, that was really beneficial. And I know my cousins never graduated high school, but I think it would have been beneficial for them to just get them out of the environment where they had the freedom to do all the crazy shit that they were doing. Right? I think the military school idea is not a bad idea. I think that would benefit a lot of these kids. But you know, I think that's going to cost a lot of money, a lot of funding, a lot of issues that come with that. So to me,
They
the
already
C-school
cost
thing
a
is
lot of
more
money in funding,
practical.
though. They already cost a lot of money, so fuck it. Yeah.
Long term, having these people in society costs way more money, right? So I'd agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
But I think the C school thing is like closer within reach, I guess.
I want to add to that as well, though, real quick, just before I don't know whoever goes, but I want to say I think Ollie actually is on to something with the military school or whatever specifically. And like I know we're sitting here talking about the whoopings thing earlier, and everybody's kind of memeing on me with it. But there's also like alternative. And the point is to have like a negative that comes with like something bad. Like say like I'm not saying we go out there and do holes, but like hey, if this kid obviously doesn't want to do it, it's like whatever. But maybe you need to go get out there and have the kid dig a hole. Something he's not going to enjoy. Yeah. That he's forced to do because, you did X, Y, Z. And then, you still get your learning in. Be like, oh, you don't get to leave today until the hole is finished being dug and you've done all your paperwork done. And then, maybe if you dig your grades on this, maybe we make you dig a little smaller hole tomorrow. You got to have some kind of incentive. It's got to be a negative impact. Yeah, and I mean... And some kids, the reason with the whoopings thing is like back in the day, like, when kids would act up, they'd hit them in the hand and it would stop. It would stop that before they could get going. But now it's more drastic because they know there's no consequence. Like I remember you would have teachers growing up like, you have subs that you respected. And then you would have subs that walk in and they would lay down the law the minute in there and then you respected them, right? And then you have subs that just got ran over every time because they didn't know what to do with these kids that are wild, right? And like, even teachers were like there. Some of these teachers just gave up after a year or two because they didn't know how to handle bad kids versus some do. And it all comes down to like the discipline and the structure.
We had a teacher in our school where they were literally throwing paintball pellets at the teacher. They were literally cutting her phone cord. They tripped her at one point. Literally, one of the students intimidated her. The other students had backpacks in between the fucking seats. And
where did you live, Dothan?
No, dog. I lived in a suburb in Dearborn. This is not a low income, nothing. Kids are just
Arabs.
fucking assholes. Kids are just fucking assholes, bro. They just are. Now, I'm not saying these kids need to be fucking beat up or go to jail. Some kids are just assholes. But they need more discipline if these are continually doing these types of things, right? I mean, you can relate it to rich kids, man. Rich kids are fucking assholes to their teachers or assholes to people that are beneath them, and so they treat them like shit. And so these kids that continuously act up, for the majority of the ones that are getting suspended, they don't give a fuck about getting suspended, bro. They look forward to it.
Which is why I think an incentive structure from the beginning.
They'd have to start from when they're really young. You can't
exactly. That's why I said from the beginning.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned
hold on. That goes into my point of there's going to be some times where you can't save them all. You might have to extradite them and put them into continuation type of schools.
Extradite.
But then whatever you want, whatever word I use, a different word, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
What I mean is, like, I'm trying to build an incentive structure in my own program, my youth program, by having like a game room, 5 PCs, 3 game consoles, and I'm gonna say, listen, you want to participate in this program and have the privilege of using these game systems and play, you have to go through the program. You have to attend the lesson for the hour. You have to participate. You have to sign a morality clause.
Or I can just skip and go home. Or I can just skip and go home and play Xbox. Like, why?
Yeah,
would
but part of the incentive structure is to be with other people. So like
but they're with their friends who are skipping. This is
you're not understanding what I'm trying to say right now. Because I'm trying to say that their home is worse program. So them going home to a chaotic household is worse off than them staying in my home. Because you have to think about it. Why are they the way they are? Is due
because they're going home because their parents aren't home because their parents are at work, so it's not chaotic when so they don't have to listen to their authority at school, so they're skipping and going home and doing whatever the fuck they want until
I understand.
Home.
Listen though. I'm not going to be able to solve every problematic kid. There's probably going to be more tailored programs that can help those specific problematic kids. But I have certain problems.
Not motivation. They need discipline.
Yeah,
you can do both. There's not a both and no.
But like it seems that anytime we talk, like you need to incentivize kids and you need to be proper. Like that's the obvious action. But it seems that anytime anyone's bringing any form of motivation, it seems to be like no.
You can't do both like that.
To remove something that you like to remove access from something that you like is discipline. Am I incorrect on that?
But hold on. So somebody mentioned earlier that gym teachers used to punish the kids, right? And like, say you had a soft teacher, right? I remember in our school there was teachers that were just nicer, right? And they would go and tell the coaches if they were in a football program, oh, this kid's acting up, and then the coach would be like, oh, okay, all right, practice is done, but I need John, I need Juan, I need Seymour. Y'all come over here real quick, and you're gonna be running lines till you throw up, and people are gonna be, oh, that's terrible. Don't do that. Guess what? Boy didn't act up the next day in class. Boy didn't act up the next day in the class after that because he didn't want to have to be throwing up after football practice from running lines for being a jackass. Like it's just real simple. Like there's like you can like take away something that you like gave them. That's great, but like you actually if you don't like cause them like a physical discomfort, then sometimes people just don't learn. It's just like when you put your hand on a hot stove. Do you do it the next time? No, because it hurt.
At the end of the day, we've all given like one-sided or like one part of the holistic solution that we. Hold on, brother, please. At the end of the day, we've all given like one side of like a very multifaceted type of thing that we probably gonna have to incorporate every idea that we've given, and still. Every pushback that I've heard anyone say, that's just going to be true for everything because there's always going to be the exception to whatever thing you're going to suggest. There's always going to be some kid that's not going to have this particular solution apply to that. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, listen, I'm hearing a lot of like behaviorism 101. No, we need positive reinforcement. No, we need negative punishment. Sure, yeah, we need negative punishment, we need positive reinforcement, we need negative reinforcement, and we need positive punishment. Or, not really, you don't really need positive punishment, but you get what I'm saying.
I'm gonna ask ChatGPT.
That's fine and dandy. That's
is
fine.
Positive punishment BDSM? I Actually, I don't know. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I apologize.
It has to do. It has to do with whether or not you're taking something away, or whether or not you're giving something, and whether or
Okay.
not that is a good thing, or whether or not that is a bad thing, right? So, like negative reinforcement would be like I give you a bunch of chores, and then you start behaving, and then I get rid of those chores, right? So that is a form of negative reinforcement. Whereas negative
Okay.
punishment would be whooping them kids. Um. So yes, like I get that. What we are dealing with is we are saying, hey, look, we have failing schools all across America that are doing worse in many ways. Many of them are in the worst neighborhoods. And we have violent kids. Some of this has been a change of demographics in some schools. Some of this has been a change of funding and the fact that, everybody's budgets are a little bit tighter because inflation is worse. Some of this are the problems that occurred during COVID. And the question is how do we fix these systems? And when we look at the systems that are the most successful, the first thing that they did was get rid of the bad kids. And most of you are kind of agreeing with that. Sociologic, especially, it's like, yeah, we kind of agree with that. Let's put them in military school. I don't agree with putting them in military school, but you win some, you lose some, right? I don't necessarily agree with charter schools, even though they are kind of what I'm asking for because of UN Sustainable Developmental Goals 2030 and the fact that they specifically state that they want to use charter schools as a means of pushing critical theory and Marxist philosophy onto all of Americans. That sucks. But nevertheless, what we have to look at is the incentives. And if your incentive is, well, we'll just beat some kids, or we'll get mentors for some kids, that's fine. But if you're not removing those kids, you're not actually doing anything for the rest of those kids so that they can have an education. So I'm with you guys that there are many different strategies that we can use to help problem kids. And for some of these kids, none of them will fucking work. But my question becomes, if you disagree with this, why ought other students be dragged down by a few bad kids? They shouldn't be. We know they shouldn't be. And a privatized model and getting money back into the hands of parents so that they can homeschool some kids, so they can send some kids to private school, or so that they can simply have a co-op with other people, or so that specialty schools for problem kids like military schools can have more funding because parents have more of their money is going to be the right answer. Please, for generations we have been throwing money at failing schools that are only getting worse. For once, can we not just give that money back to parents so that parents can get their kids the educations they deserve?
And Admiral Gibbs, just for clarification, you are pro positive punishment.
Hey.
I just looked it up. Beating kids is positive punishment.
Yes.
Okay. So let me ask you about that then. And we already passed 11:30 p.m. Eastern. So if someone needs to go, then please, I mean not please do, but you can. You're not being held here. But so yeah. So what was I gonna say? Fuck. Yeah, you said we're giving the money back to the kids. Sorry,
Well,
to the parents. Excuse me. Yeah. And what do you think would happen? Like, so if we're talking about, like, for instance, low income families that have trouble, making ends meet, and you say, well, there's this option where you can withdraw your child from school and you get this cash. Do you think that cash will necessarily go to the kids, or maybe not even just low income families, maybe other families, right? Do you think that necessarily like rebounds to the kid? Especially if we're talking
I do
about
have
trouble
to head up.
anyway.
You kind of make an argument against reparations, brother.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Be well.
Hey, nice seeing you, Tom Fuller.
Bye.
So I would say that like whenever you do shock therapy, negative things happen, negative externalities occur, negative consequences occur in the short term, right? We saw this in Poland, and we saw this in the USSR, in basically in every USSR country. Worse in Russia than it was in some of the Eastern Bloc, right? Where when you go from socialism to more market-based things, there's a shock, right? That's why it's called shock therapy. There's a minute where it takes the market a moment to respond. And you're absolutely going to see shock if you pull money from inner city schools and reduce taxation as a means of doing that. Now there is Loeffner's curve. So I would assume that in many of these communities, you're actually going to increase tax revenue as you reduce taxation. That's just a fact of economics that often when you reduce taxation, you increase the amount of tax revenue that you get. So schools will actually get more money as you reduce taxation because they pulled more money in from taxes. Um, but eventually, like Lofter's curve will break, of course. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, like there's going to be problems in a short period of time whilst that's occurring. I'm not saying we just like abolish all schools tomorrow because it would never you'd never get that to happen. But if you slowly start pulling funding from one, what you're going to see is that these lower income neighborhoods are going to have more income. And the reason they're going to have more income is because their employers have more income. When their employers have more income, well, guess what? Now they need more employees because their business needs to grow. And when they need more employees and more people aren't born, all of a sudden there's more competition for labor. And when there's competition for labor, wages increase, right? Like we have a low socioeconomic status class that is a welfare class in this country
So
that has
I'm,
been created by socialist policies that have maintained poverty.
okay. So maybe I'm misunderstanding your point. So just please clarify that for me. So it
Yeah.
sounded like to me is that you wanted to put money directly in the hands of these parents, and for them to homeschool them or something. And like once you do that, hey, your kid like loses the right, of course, to go to public
Well, so,
school.
yeah, what
it's
I'm talking about is like, so what I'm talking about is like, people say all the time, Milton Friedman was a supporter of universal basic income, right? He was not a supporter of universal basic income the way that the left is a support of universal
Negative
basic
income tax.
What do you, right? Well, basically the same thing, right? The reason that he was in favor of it was let's get rid of welfare programs and replace them with just straight up cash because the government does a terrible job
Yes.
at all of these welfare programs and straight up cash is just more effective. And that's kind of what I'm saying is as an interim, I would support something that simply gets rid of your kid in public school and then just gives you the cash the school would have gotten for your child anyways. I'm not saying that that is the ultimate solution. I'm saying that that is a great way to transition to bring market principles back into the child market because as it stands right now, many private schools are only done by the wealthy because the wealthy are paying the tax for your public schools and then they're having to pay private school on top of that. That's what's pricing kids out of private school, not fucking public schools are what's pricing them out, not wealth. And it's not income inequality that's causing that.
I'm gonna need a bounce, guys. Catch you guys
Yeah.
Peace. Me
Have a
too,
good one.
Lactoid.
later.
Take
See
care,
y'all.
Lactoid.
Love y'all.
Yeah, I was actually gonna end things, but have a good one. Everyone,
Hey,
thanks
brother.
everyone, thanks for coming through. I really do appreciate it. You guys were fantastic. I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys had fun too. You can go to exit. If Lactoid, do you want to get exit? And we'll
Sure. No, I'll give a quick exit. Yeah, thank you guys for listening to me and having fun and all that good shit. You can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks.
have a good one, friend. Bye.
Thanks.
And Scott, thank you for giving your opinion on this one. You'll always come in here with a lot of passion, and it shows. Thanks so much, friend.
Thank you. I'm Scott. You can find me Fabian Liberty pretty much everywhere except if you follow me on Twitch. Like I don't stream on Twitch anymore. It's there. But yeah, I'm a libertarian, anarcho-capitalist. Come check us out.
Thank you so much. All right, our friend Corey. Corey, thank you for coming through. Always nice to have you.
All right. All right. Well, thank you guys for hanging out. I know I wasn't as active as I normally am this time around. Unfortunately, we got hit with the classic migraine. Monday migraine day. Sometimes it happens. Yeah, it's always so frustrating too because it hits, you kind of feel it coming up through the whole day, and then it hits you, and you're just like, it takes away so much of the oomph behind your sales. So it is what it is. I pushed through it for the panel as best I could. Contributed what I could. Definitely had a little bit less patience this time around. It happens. So sorry about that for those of you who don't like that side of me, and um, happy to provide for those of you who do. What we're gonna do is, I want to know, is Prime, if Prime is closing up soon, I kind of want to just right on out over to Gibbs, because Gibbs has been, or actually, you know what? I haven't rated over to Grumple. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna rate on over to Grumple Stillskin. He's a cool guy. Comes around here, supporter of the channel, and I don't really know what he's doing, but it's gonna be a bit different than what we've been talking about. But that's okay. The topics I think we've talked about before. So unless we want to write on out over to Rob Noor, and that's political, but it's different politics to what we've been talking about. So Tim Pool and Israel policy. So I'm gonna let the chat kind of tell me. I am sick of Israel discussions completely. If I have to have another fucking Israel discussion, I'm gonna cry. I don't know what I'm gonna do if Prime wants to have a fucking Israel discussion and then like invites me, because I want to keep the streak going. I want to be there for him, but I really, really don't want to talk about fucking Israel Palestine. Jesus, for the millionth time. What do you guys think about Andrew Tate generally? We talked a little bit about it at the very beginning. Just give a crazy response. He's a Kerrigan. I forget. Are you like more of a right winger, or are you more of like a left winger or a centrist, or what are you? Where would you put yourself at? Centrist-ish, yeah. Fair enough. All right, we'll throw you guys over to Rob. It's politics. How do I feel about him? You know, from what I've heard, he probably has done some bad shit. That's the thing. And I want to. So what I was told by Scott today is that apparently there's a video of him admitting to like directly doing some pretty bad shit, which sucks because if he did like bad shit, like 15-year-old girl shit, that, or 16 or whatever the fuck, it's just terrible shit. So fuck that. I'm not a fan of that. But with his other shit, like the sort of grandiose personality, the jokes, like the cigars and the cars and all that stuff. I mean, that stuff is pretty fun, right? And I think he's obviously got Riz. He's a likable person. Yeah. So anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. For those of you who gave bit subs, were active in the chat, really appreciate it. As always, much love, much love. And I'm going to rate on out. I'll see you guys next time. I'll be around. Peace.
Just one quick. They knew that